like this.
Ah, bring it!
Ah!
Ah, bring it!
Ah!
Enjoy your return to the surface, and thank you for choosing Vault Tech.
Oh, God. All right, is this mic hot or what? Can y'all hear me? I am still such a noob with OBS. All right, there we go. I need a OBS lesson. If somebody wants to meet up with me one of these days and just tell me how this stuff works, because I had so much cool footage I was about to show you guys, and I just interrupted it by accident because I was clicking on things. But hey, welcome. It has been. You only hear left ear. Yeah, I don't know how to fix that. Let's see here. Let's play with these advanced audio properties. What if we down mix to mono? Does that do it? How about down mix to mono? How's that? Am I in your right ear now? Am I in both of your ears? Not loud enough. All right, what can we do for that? Let's see here. Advanced audio properties. Volume. Can we go past 100? Oh, we can go up to 11. Let's go to 150%. Let's see how that sounds. 140. There we go. How's that? A little better? You guys need me to go louder? Much better? All right, cool. All right, fantastic. Well, left and right, still too soft. Now it's super quiet. We're gonna get this worked out one of these days. I'm gonna become a master streamer. I really am not. All right, let's go up to. We're gonna double the volume. We're gonna go all the way up to double. See how that sounds. Let me just get up closer to the mic too. Maybe I'll put it in my mouth. Whoa, that's what she said. Are we allowed to say that anymore? Okay. Okay, sounds good now. All right, awesome. Welcome to just scream the whole time. It sounds good. All right, I'm gonna shrink out chat because I am easily distracted by it. So I'm gonna rely on Rick and Demanding to like fill me in on what's going on if there's something wrong, but I'm just gonna keep just the video of the stream so I can tell when things are going south. Like I can already see there's some weird bar on the corner, but all right, we'll deal with that later. Okay, so yeah, Conqueror is up. Some of you probably already played around a little bit. But I'm going to give you guys kind of what I would normally do for the videos where I walk through all of the features and show you in detail how they work. And I'm kind of just going to do that here on stream. And then I'll get those videos released over time when I'm a little less pressed for time, because I basically worked on Conqueror right up until this morning just because there were some features I really wanted to squeak in there. And of course, we inevitably find horrendous bugs on the last day. And I hate to let those launch in there. So I don't know what this little white bar thing is here. Maybe that's Steam. I don't know what's going on here with this. Let's see. Yeah, it was Steam. Okay, there we go. All right, so we're going to load in. We're actually going to just load up a new game. And I'm going to show you guys the feature I think most of you were prepared for. And I think some of the other stuff that's listed there is probably a shocker, like the fact that we have a Raider quest. And that was actually a shocker to me too, because it wasn't originally the plan, but it kind of came together, and now we're doubling down on it. But we're gonna start by I'm gonna show you guys the wizard for pre-starting your city plans, because essentially it changes Fallout 4 so much to have the settlements pre-built. That's actually how Conqueror came to be. Is once we started playing around with that idea, it just changed our whole perspective of what Fallout 4 could be. And then the dominoes came tumbling down, and we figured out more and more features based off of that. So as soon as you're done building your character, after a few seconds, you're going to get the pop-up for performance. Now, right away, I'm going to talk about this, especially for you guys on Xbox. Instead of getting the performance pop-up, you'd get which Xbox model you have. Now, generally, I would just tell everybody select the correct answer. But since many of you have played with the city plans already, you know whether or not your computer or your Xbox can handle them generally. So if you find that when you use city plans you crash a lot, you might want to, at this stage during this startup wizard, is select something lower. So you could select low even if you're playing on an Ultra PC, and it will make sure that those pre-built city plans are working on, assuming that your computer is at that level of power. Or for example, on Xbox One X, you might want to just choose original Xbox One when you get the pop-up for if you're going to use this feature. Okay, I see we're getting some questions here, so I'll pause my thought there for a second. So right now, when we get to the conquering stuff, we'll talk about the raider aspect of it. But long term, this system is designed for any faction to use, and we'll go into how all that's going to work. But what we wanted to do with Conqueror was pick a faction and actually show you how it could work and like make kind of a game experience out of it. And we chose the Raiders because we felt like they were underrepresented, and because UIT showed me some really cool buildings that just captured my imagination. So we kind of ran with the Raider theme. All right, so after you choose your graphic settings, now I'm going to go ahead and hit Ultra. My computer seems to be able to handle whatever I throw at it in Fallout. So then a few seconds later, you're going to get a pop-up that will ask you if you want to play with this feature. So this feature, this is the only time you can see this menu. And if you use a quick start mod or a save file that's like already at the vault, you will also still get this after their little startup sequence is done, or after your save loads. It essentially, what it checks for is, do you own any workshops yet? So if you haven't touched any of the workshops, then you will get this prompt when you start up. Now, one of the beautiful things about the startup sequence of Fallout 4 is it takes forever. So Conqueror takes advantage of all that time to build all the cities in the background. And on a computer, by the time you get out, you can have all 35 settlements, or it's actually more than that now. There's over 30 settlements that we have city plans for. And then I think if you count Yagasans, and I know I just butchered your name, sorry, you've never told me how to pronounce that yet. His city plans are all, if those were all included as well, I think it's something like there's almost 50 settlements available that you could do this on. And it can finish them all by the time you're done with the vault sequence. So we're going to show me these options. And essentially, the way that I kind of looked at this is like how you get started before you launch like a game of Civilization or any of those type of those strategy games where you kind of set up your map options. So one of the things I envision with Conqueror is it can kind of open up this new idea where you can play Fallout 4 a little more rapidly if you want. So you could kind of choose new options to change the game world, go do your playthrough, and then, you know, power through and do whatever you want, whether or not, because that's something I like to do a lot in Skyrim, is I would like decide I'm going to roll up a character and all I'm going to do is like maybe the Thieves and Dark Brotherhood, and then I'm done with that character. And I don't feel like you have that a lot in Fallout 4, and so I'm hoping that this will kind of open up that idea of maybe you're going to RP a character and you can go through and then know the next time, thanks to this system, you can change up a lot of the game world. So if you accidentally hit it, you can hit actually change my mind and go back and cancel out of it. So you're not committed to it. There's like multiple commit screens. It really makes sure that you are sure you want to do this. So the first option, the obvious, is the pick which settlements you want to do. So when you go to pick settlements, it's going to give you a little explanation. And this is something in general with this expansion and all content going forward with Sim Settlements, is we're going to try and do a lot better job of explaining everything in the game. Either through text prompts, or now with, you're going to see with a lot of the Raider stuff, we actually did it with a quest. So there's voiced characters and they'll teach you everything, so that you don't have to commit to watching these hours of videos like you often do for my mods. And the hope is to do that from now on. So whenever we release new stuff, we'll try and integrate it with some sort of quest, or make sure there's appropriate prompts to get you guys in the know, so you can just download and play without having to listen to me yammer on. All right, so when you get this screen, essentially on the left, those are the settlements that are not going to be used, the ones in your inventory, and then on the right are the ones that are going to be used. So by default, it picks all of the ones that are generally safe to use right out of the bat. So the ones on the left that it's avoiding by default are Covenant, because there's the quest there. Red Rocket, so that somebody's city, because while our city plan is safe to use, the one that's in Rise of the Commonwealth, it could be that somebody else releases a city plan that were to cover up the spot Dogmeat is at, and then it could push him under the world, and then you wouldn't get Dogmeat. So Red Rocket's a risky one to use. Sanctuary, just because it can break Codsworth's quest. So one of the ways to get around that is if you decide to build Sanctuary first. In fact, we're going to go ahead and build all of them in this test, because I'm actually going to play through the opening and show you guys while I'm talking. But in Sanctuary, if you decide to build this, just don't talk to Codsworth until after you go kill all the bloatflies, and then his quest will be fine. But I wanted to avoid anything starting up automatically that would be a pain in your butt. So if you didn't go into this menu and select all these, because if you want on that first screen, you can just power through and hit accept, and the default options will do some pretty cool stuff for you. All right, so then the castle, because it can break the Minutemen quest, Mechanist Slayer, because there's a quest there, and Vault 88 because of the quest there. So basically all of the settlements that have quests involved or a character, we have those turned off by default in order to avoid an issue. In fact, I'm actually going to pull some of those out just because we're not going to get to them anyway. Let me pull out all of the DLC ones, because we're just not going to go there today. But it does work with those, and in theory, it should work with all mod-added settlements as well, as long as they have city plans available. I have not tested it on those, though. We've tested it extensively in the Commonwealth, though. I've captured pretty much every settlement now using the mechanics in this, and it seems to work quite well. What am I missing? There's one more national park, I think. No, do I got that? It just didn't show up in the list. Hey, we've got a little bug. Oh no, there it is. It's just named Visitor Center. I thought it was named National Park. Okay, cool. So we are going to hit accept there. So essentially you just trade with that. You're bartering with this system here. And then once you're confident of how it looks, you can exit out of the screen. Now, if you notice on the left on my screen after I traded, it went down to just showing the Mechanist Lair and Vault 88. That's just a quirk with the UI of Fallout 4. If you tab over to the left side and scroll through, it'll show them all again. So that's just a visual glitch with the Fallout UI. So then when you exit that container, it's going to say updating options in the corner. Because this is a very intensive process, there tend to be little blips of time where there's nothing on screen, so just be patient with it. And then we're going to go ahead and click pick city plans. And I believe I only have the ROTC ones installed on this particular computer. But if you had multiple installed, so if you were using, say, the city plan contest, those could be in here as well. And you essentially just pick the ones that you want to use. And if you choose multiple for a settlement, like, so for example, we're just wrapping up the city plan contest, which I do need to announce the winner before this stream's over. Somebody remind me to do that. But if you were to have, say, all of the Finch Farm designs in and you left them all in here in the city plans, when you started your game, it would pick one at random and use that. So you can go ahead and put as many as you want in there, and then you'll kind of be a surprise to yourself about which design they end up using. So you can get some randomization in your playthrough, which will be it makes it a lot more exciting, because like every time I've done this now, when I've played with the city plan contest mods, I never know what's gonna be at places like Starlight and some of the ones that we've already done so far. All right, let's see here. So I'm gonna just leave all of them in. So I'm gonna exit the container. And now we've got some more options here. So the next option are level options. This one I think a lot of you guys are going to be excited about, because I've been getting asked this since the day ROTC released, which is there a way to skip the levels? Well, now there is. So you can actually choose what level you want to start them at. Now there's a couple of things to note with this. The reason we start them at level 1 is because level 1 looks pretty good, but it doesn't overwhelm most systems. If you are on an original Xbox, I would never push level 2 or 3 unless you're only going to run a couple of them, or you will likely make a crashing save file. In fact, it's probably a good idea if you're not on the best PC, or if you're on the original Xbox One, you might want to build your first time doing this, do a dummy save, just knowing that, like, plan on it getting corrupted, and just see how far you can push it. You know, try with 20 settlements, try with 10 settlements, and just see if things are stable. In the tests we were doing with Xbox, on Xbox One X, we had a lot of problems with Bethesda.net, where it was giving this operation cannot be complete error. And I know a lot of you guys have been experiencing that, and I've reported it to the people I know at Bethesda multiple times, and they're aware of it, and they're supposed to be working on it. But who knows how long it'll take to get fixed. But in the meantime, you're going to want to do some experiments for yourself to figure out how much your particular Xbox can handle. Now, I'm going to jump all these to level 3 because it's exciting. But the other thing to note with the pushing the levels up higher is if you're planning on doing the Raider gameplay, that means you're going to have to deal with level 3 marshal plots and the turrets that we put in at level 3, and it makes some of those cities brutal to capture. And you'll see why when we get into the mechanics of the Conquer system. But just know that it starts at level 1 for a variety of reasons, one of which is stability, and the other of which is the challenge level of building your settlements. But the other thing is that you can see here we've got this allow cities to upgrade during gameplay. So the other thing with changing it to level 1 is you can see these cities evolve. So now we've talked about the question came up about whether this is only for raiders or if you can do it with other factions. Well, one of the other things this opens up the possibility of, you don't have to play the Conquer gameplay, you don't have to engage with the raiders. You can just use this to add a new exploration element, because then all of a sudden you'd have all of these cities you could visit. You're not in charge of them. They will have vendors you can shop at. They will have farm food you can steal. And they can just be like a new part of your exploration gameplay, especially when you talk about things like the city plan contest pushing out a lot of city plans. So there'll always be variety, and you'll have some randomization, so you won't even know what the city's going to look like before you get there. And it can really just change up the game every time you play. And then you add on this allow cities to upgrade. Well, now you have reason to come back and visit them later. So if you start them out at level 0 or the foundation level or level 1, then you go play the game for a while, and then maybe after a few weeks in game, you go back to the city and you can see if it upgraded or not, and then it'll have changed. There'll be better plots for you to shop at and just cooler stuff to look at. Plots start at city level, so you can either choose this on or off. If you turn it off, all of the plots will start at level 1. If you start it on, they will just match whatever you set the city level to at. Now, if you have the city level at foundation, that also counts as starting the plots at level 1. And just like the allowing the cities to upgrade, the plots will upgrade as you play as well. And since you're not in charge of the settlement, it will just happen automatically. You don't have to worry about happiness or food. They'll just take care of all of that themselves. You do still have the option, and this is another way when I talk about the conquering, you don't have to conquer with our raider system. You can also conquer naturally through doing the radiant quests that the settlers will give. So you can walk up and do they'll ask for your help, and you'll go beat up some raiders or something, and then when you come back, you'll have control of the settlement. And then there's a few where that's not an option, where generally the way you capture them is just activating the workbench. And that won't work anymore, but since Workshop Framework is required for Conqueror, you have access to the Claim This Settlement option, which is in the Workshop Framework holotape and MCM menu. So anytime you could walk into a city and just take control of it without playing through the Conqueror mechanics. But we are going to eventually offer methods for you guys to take control without having to be the raider if that's not what you're interested in. But it is a fun way to do it. It is really fun to beat down some settlers, and we'll show that in a bit. Use designer's choice building plans. That's on by default, and that basically means for the city plan to use the plan that we thought fit best with each of the plots. And that's super useful because you want your cities to look good, and you don't want pathing issues, and that can help out a lot with that. So that's on by default. So like I said, most of the default options are designed so that you don't have to think about this or spend this much time in the menu. Like, obviously, you're just listening to me vomit out words here, and so that's fine. But in general, when you're playing, you could just come in here, hit OK, I'm ready, and it will instantly just set up the options in a way that makes sense for most folks. And it'll automatically like randomize which ones. It won't use the settlements that are a problem, and so you don't have to spend a lot of time in this menu. You can buzz right through it. All right, settler options. So you can set up population growth. So if you want them to continue to recruit new people and grow over time, you can choose the level you want it in. So that's based on the number of residential plots and beds. So by default, we just have it fill up with settlers. And then if you decide to, or if they grow during a level or anything, they'll continue to add more settlers. And then civilians is something new we've added. So we weren't happy with the settlers because they have voice files that are very familiar. We've all played the crap out of them. We've heard these guys talk forever and ever. But also the fact that they ask a lot of questions and talk about things that make it seem like you're in charge of the settlement. Like a lot of their idle dialogue sounds like you're in charge of the settlement, which just didn't fit. So we had a bunch of voice actors record a whole lot of random little snippets and lines, and we did our own set of custom voiced NPCs, and they are called civilians, and they will live in these cities before you capture them. But if you don't like them, I know some of the voices maybe aren't as immersive as others. I know, like, for some reason we had a lot of Southern accents among our team. I don't know why. I think that might have just been happenstance based on the order the files were processed, because we actually still have I think another dozen voices for civilians that we're going to put in a patch. Turns out that sound files are ultra small. Like, we have, I think, 1,200 lines of dialogue in this expansion, and the whole mod, even with all of its other content, is only 70 megs. So we are going to be going nuts with dialogue in the future now that we know it's so tiny, because it really adds a lot to the feel of the game. So civilians is something I recommend you leave on, but if you decide you hate it, or you just want, you like the classic settlers, you can turn that on as well. And then my personal favorite section down here is randomization, and this is something that's going to get expanded a lot in the future. So you can choose randomize which settlements, randomize the starting levels, randomize the population. So if you were to choose any of these, so if you choose randomize settlements to build, it will just select a handful of the settlements, and once you push this button, so if I activate this, you get some more options. So you can choose the minimum and the maximum number to build. So if you leave it between 50 and 100, that means somewhere about, you're going to get about 50% of the settlements will pre-build, and the rest will be left alone. Or if you want it to be lower, say you only want 10% of them to build, then you would set this down to 10% and then set the max to 10%. And now exactly 10% of them will build. Or if you want a smaller range, so 10 to 40% will build. And this will just mean, so like out of the 35 settlements with city plans, 10% is going to be like around 4 of them, and then 40% would be like 16. So then somewhere between 4 and 16 settlements will get built. Then you can randomize the starting levels. So you can choose to the minimum if you want them to go somewhere between anywhere, say some foundation to level 3. Then all of those settlements, you'll have no idea which ones they're going to build. You'll have no idea what level they're going to be. And you can even randomize the population so you don't know how populated they're going to be. So you can really control some of the randomization and change the whole game world every single time you start up a new playthrough. Now, there are some other options I have planned for this, and I'm going to just talk about them now while we're sitting in this menu. But otherwise, I'm going to save the future stuff for a later part of this stream. But some other options that I envision here are the ability to pre-seed control of cities to specific factions. So maybe you don't care about immersion, and you're just like, I want to do a playthrough of Minutemen versus the Brotherhood, or Raiders versus the Institute, or something. You'll be able to set up a faction to just have control of all of the settlements, and then it becomes a game of control where you're wiping out your enemies. So that's another way you'll be able to play this in the future. All right, now before we go on and I am going to just hit OK here and get out of this menu, but then I'm going to answer some of these questions that Rick's been queuing up for me. Let me make sure I got through all the options. There you go. So then once you're satisfied with the options, you hit OK, I'm ready, and then you'll get one last final confirmation to make sure, because there's no going back. Like once you hit this, it's going to start building in the background. Now, one thing to note is one of the ways Fallout 4 can crash is when there's a lot of scripts running and it tries to save the game. This is especially true on Xbox for whatever reason. I think it's just the limited memory on the Xbox. It has trouble making enough room to make save files. So if you find that while this is running, and it can take quite a while to completely finish. So the city building, by the time I finish with the startup sequence and get out to Sanctuary, it will all be done. But there'll be certain background things that aren't done, like maybe the plots won't have their clutter on them or whatnot, and things like that. It can take several hours before it's all fully done in the background. So there's always a lot of scripts running. So if you find that you're having the game crash from that, and so far on PC it's been pretty rare that we've had it. I've never had it happen, but I know some of the testers did. But the solution to it is very easy. So you just go into your settings under gameplay, and you turn off these auto saves. So you turn off save on rest, save on wait, save on travel. That's generally what's triggering those saves, and it's what's causing your game to crash, because it's got this process still running in the background. Now, likely what I'll do in the future is if I find a lot of people are struggling with that, I will just put an option in to where it will pop up a message telling you it's done, and then you could kind of set up your options, set your controller down or set your mouse keyboard down, go get dinner, come back, and then it'll tell you if it's done, so you can play your game and not have to worry about the script loading. But I don't think most people on PC are going to have an issue with that. I think we've streamlined the scripting enough to where it just won't be an issue. Okay, let's do some questions here. Is there a plan to make quests for the newspaper and magazine industry plots? Let's keep the questions on Conqueror stuff, or the stuff I'm talking about, and I'll open it up to a full Q&A later on, and then we can talk about whatever you guys want. You can ask me personal questions or talk about other Sim settlement stuff. Okay, so let's look at the next question. If we took out a settlement earlier from the trade screen, would it be excluded from randomized bit if we chose that? Yes. So it will only randomize from among the ones you left in the settlement screen. So you're basically deciding those first two screens with the settlements and the city plans, you're essentially setting up the pool of potentials, and then the randomization options will select from that. How are you? Oh, that's a great question. I'm doing much better now. I was very stressed today because the testers sent me some reports that were a little disturbing, and then I rolled up on a clean computer with no other mods and couldn't replicate them, so I felt a lot better about it. So there might be some mod conflicts out there we got to deal with, but that's expected. This mod is Conqueror is easily the most complex thing I've ever built. It's far more complicated than Rise of the Commonwealth or Sim Settlements Core. So there's inevitably going to be some things, some conflicts and things we didn't think about. But once again, like usual, I don't like to touch. I forgot I'm supposed to be playing this while I'm talking. I don't touch any of the vanilla records, so nothing is edited. So any of the conflicts are likely just going to be things we can script our way around, or it will be something that the other mod authors did that they weren't supposed to, because dirty edits are bad. All right. Does the quest have any relation with Nuka World, or is it completely left out? So we left Nuka World alone for a couple of reasons. One is we didn't want to introduce a dependency on Nuka World, because I know some of you guys don't own it. But actually, a little segue. If any of you guys is on Xbox and you don't have the season pass of DLC, go ahead and post Rick, please love me in chat. And Rick's going to choose one of you and hook you up with a DLC code for the Xbox. So we've got we had some left over from the Twitter giveaway the other day. So we've got some season passes that Bethesda hooked us up with, and those will let you get all the DLC for free. Okay, so back to the questions. Does the quest have a relation with Nuka World? No, it doesn't. Though we are going to, part of our future plan is to tie in more with Nuka World. We're going to make more. We've made a few references to it in our quest, and we'll make more references, and we'll integrate with their leveled lists and really take advantage of that sort of thing. So we are definitely going to involve Nuka World, but for now we wanted to just not break anything. And as you're going to find out when we get further in this live stream, we're planning this as like a long-term thing. So Conqueror has a long shelf life. We've got a lot of content planned for it, and we're kind of rolling out the grand vision in phases just to make sure that the systems kind of work. Because one of the problems we had with ROTC is we launched so many new systems at once that it took a long time to fix them all. And so with this, instead, I've got a lot more systems done that aren't actually live in the mod. They're just kind of dormant or half finished. And I want to get the stuff that's in the mod and live fixed before I move on to the next big thing. And so Nuka World is one of those on the list. Let's see here. If we start from a foundation level for our settlements rather than level 1 to 3, will we still see the settlements build up naturally from there? Yes, if you leave the default option on of settlements build up, the settlement will naturally level up. You'll see the plots will start building, the plots will level up, and then the settlement will go. So you can really set yourself up for a really long play. And that's kind of one of the cool things about this is it kind of adds in both directions. So in one way, it makes the game faster because the settlements are all built, so you eliminate that gameplay loop if you want. So if you want to play faster and get through your games a little quicker, you can. But it also gives you a slower option because you can set up the city plans to start out at level 0 and watch them slowly evolve. And then you've got, of course, the Conquest gameplay on the tail end of it. So there's really adds a lot of variety to the range of your gameplay. All right, let's see here. Does this add a raider endgame like an entire faction? So that's one of those things that we are planning. So right now, we have, I wouldn't call it an end game, but we do have an ending of sorts to our little raider quest because we didn't want to leave you guys hanging. But I would say it's more like end of chapter 1 as opposed to a proper ending. And we don't have an ending of like taking on the Institute or anything like that. But that is on our long-term plan. We definitely want to offer you the ability to play exclusively as a raider. That was kind of like, that was something we didn't plan originally. But once we started down that path, it just felt too good to not pursue because it's really fun playing a bad guy after years of playing this game as Goody Two Shoes. Let's see here. Have you added your own NPCs for settlement leaders? Sort of. So we have one new settlement leader, and you're going to meet him during this live stream. We're gonna talk to him because he's kind of like Shank. So if you're familiar with Nuka World, there's a character called, or if you're not familiar, I should say, there's a character called Shank, and he acts as kind of an interface to allow you to raid the settlements. Well, we wanted something like that for players who didn't have Nuka World, and originally it was just going to be a throwaway character that was literally just going to be copy all of Shank's dialogue, and then we decided that wasn't fun, and instead we designed a whole character. Super Weevil, who I think is in chat, did a bunch of writing and put together this great character, and then Jan did this great voice for him. If you hate northeastern mafia stereotypes, you might not love this character, as he can be a little cliche sometimes, but I have fallen in love with the character. I'm really enjoying it, and so we're going to expand on his quest. But he can be a leader, and we actually have I want to say another 7 or 8 leaders that are going to be put in through patches that we've got planned. So lots more custom leaders are going to be coming down the pipes. For those of you guys who asked Rick to love him, he just reminded me he has no way to message you guys. So we may need you guys to like contact Sim Settlements on Facebook or Twitter in order for him to hook you up with that. But yeah, Rick, once people stop sending those tweets and Facebook messages, or however it is that you can contact them, I'll let him tell that in chat since I'm not reading the chat. But he will. You can go ahead and pick one of them and send one of those codes out. Let's get some people in the DLC, because the Nuka World actually. So I wasn't super impressed with the Nuka World the first time I played it, but then when I started diving into it to learn how it all worked, the depth of that DLC is incredible. Like mad props to Bethesda for putting in the amount of work they actually did. Like if you haven't put a lot of time into Nuka World, like now's the time now while you're playing Conqueror is to go do a full proper Nuka World playthrough, because they've got so much integrated into it, it's nuts. They've even got stuff like random events and stuff that happen back in the Commonwealth after you engage with them. It's really deep, which I was very surprised pleasantly by, and it also inspired some of the stuff that we've got coming for Conqueror. All right, we're just continuing the sequence. So like you can see, the sequence is so long and drawn out. It's absolutely perfect for Conqueror to take advantage of and run all the code in the background. Now you'll notice that Workshop Framework is a requirement for Conqueror, but it still isn't a requirement with Sim Settlements, and that was intentional. I know some of you have had trouble where you can't use Workshop Framework. It just doesn't work with certain mods you have, and we'll get past that eventually. And once I feel like we've gotten past that, then eventually Sim Settlements, probably with something like the 5.0 patch, will require Workshop Framework. Because as you're going to see with the city plan start code, Workshop Framework is so much faster than the core of Sim Settlements at placing city plans and doing things. It just makes for a way better experience. It'll make everything about Sim Settlements faster. Like all the things, the little things that might annoy you about Sim Settlements, like waiting for the building plan container or waiting for plots to refresh, all of that can be sped up by like an order of magnitude. I think it could go to 10 times the speed that it's going now if I integrate with Workshop Framework. So that's part of the long-term plan. But Conqueror, we had to. There was just no way to do the city plan code before you start your game without it. If you have played a lot of the city plans, you know that it does that cinematic sequence and throws you up in the air for a few minutes, and that's how long it takes to do each of the plans just to level 0 with Sim Settlements code. Well, in that same amount of time, the Workshop Framework code can do 2 full city plans all the way to level 3. So it's way, way faster. So if you haven't played with Workshop Framework yet, you do need that for Conqueror. And there's a lot of advantages to it. It opens up a lot of new controls over your workshops and the way you can control them. There's a bunch of options in its holotape. And it just stabilizes the workshop scripts in general, fixes some of the vanilla bugs. And it opens up a lot of opportunities for mod authors. So if you are a modder and you've ever wanted to, for example, do your own custom raids, or if you're interested in participating in developing content for Conqueror with the Conquest or the Conquer system and the assaults that are involved with it, all of that can be done with like a couple of lines of code now, thanks to Workshop Framework. So Workshop Framework's 1.1.0 update has something called the Assault Manager, and another called the Control Manager. And the Assault Manager essentially allows you can call in a single line function, you can send it an actor base and a settlement target and a number of attackers you want, and it will instantly take care of everything. It'll spawn those NPCs outside, it will friend them to the player, it will set up and wait for the player to arrive next to them. Like with a single line of code, you can set up your own assault series. And so that whole framework and that's just in its infancy, just its first round, and you're going to see it all in action here, because everything that Conqueror is doing is all thanks to Workshop Framework's new code that's in the 1.1.0 patch. Now, there are a few things that are Conqueror specific. Anything that feels especially raidery is Conqueror only, but because I try to keep Workshop Framework very, very agnostic, so it doesn't have anything specific. It has no pre-written rules. It just lets you control all of that stuff, and it's definitely nothing faction-oriented. So that's when I talked about, or I mentioned in the trailer, that eventually all factions will be able to use it. That's technically, that could start right away as soon as anybody who is a comfortable coder is willing to dig into Workshop Framework and start playing around. My plan in the first few patches is to also get out some new tutorials for the Builder's Toolkit for Sim Settlements that will simplify adding new assault quests down to just following step-by-step directions like the existing sim settlement stuff. And I also, if you've done add-on packs, so I know some of the add-on pack authors are watching, just like you can set up a building plan with you just fill out a bunch of fields. And I apologize if I'm making anybody sick with my jerky motion here on the controller. I just realized I'm probably not doing a very smooth movement. But anyway, you'll be just like you fill out a building plan. You can essentially do that for an entire faction and have a whole working assault system come out of that. Like that's how I intend to finish this up, because I want everybody to be able to play with all of the factions that they love as quickly as possible. Now you'll see with ours, we decided to do this shank thing where we hide it, mask all of the mechanics behind dialogue and like actually have a little story behind it. But in reality, I mean, any type of system like that is literally could be triggered from anything. It could be triggered from, like an activator object or a person, a quest NPC, or really anything. So I'm building it all so that it'll activate from something similar to the City Planner's Desk. So this is, I'm now talking about future stuff, but just know that all that's coming. I know I've heard a lot of requests for people who want to play with certain factions, especially I hear the Brotherhood of Steel a lot. People really seem to want to play with them. And go take over the Commonwealth, which I guess makes a lot of sense considering that seems like that might be their MO, is to come in and wreck everybody and take all of their technology. All right, let's see here. Could you guys incorporate a rival gang attacking the same settlement as you? Rival gangs are likely going to be a thing. They're kind of already talked about a bit in our story. Which I'm not going to spoil the little story we have, because it's not. So keep in mind, this whole Raider quest, it's nothing as involved as like Far Harbor or the main story or anything. It's pretty quaint in that regard. It's in linear, but we're going to keep expanding it and add new chapters to it and make it more interesting and a little deeper and give you some more choices in it and whatnot. But for now, I just don't want to spoil the little bit of quest and story that we do have. So. Let's see. Is the adding of the Egret Tourism Marina a bug I saw on the stream? It happened to Kinggath, and it happened to me too. Yeah, so that's happening because of the way Egret Tourism Marina is set to trigger. So most of the settlements have a trigger on them that involves doing a Radiant quest. And there's something about Egret Tours. I believe it might have to do with the woman who starts there. I think because she's not flagged as a settler correctly, there's something about her. And so, yes, it's a bug that I'll fix. But right now, I think you automatically do gain control of Egret when you start. So yeah, I will show you that feature. That actually is in there. So you actually can. So one of the things you can do with this when we get to the rating sequence is essentially you can choose to conquer a settlement. And you do need to at least conquer a settlement because you need to set up kind of a base of operations. But then after that, you can actually just dominate a settlement, and it will still be controlled by NPCs, but all of their excess resources will get routed to your outposts. And I will show you all of that gameplay. So if you're somebody who you don't have any interest in managing a bunch of settlements, you would definitely have the option of just setting up one main base and then just dominating everything else around it. And then you do need to set up like these little outposts to reach further. It's similar to the Nuka World gameplay, but I think we covered it. We covered some things a little better, I think, that'll just play a little better with the settlement system and the way that you guys like to play with some settlements. And yeah, we're finished. Exit the vault. But yeah, there's definitely a lot more you can do than just conquering the settlements. But we will get into all that in a bit. So essentially, I'm just going to be showing you guys now the same thing you saw in that little video before I interrupted it with playing around with OBS. In that we pop out and you'll see that Sanctuary is already built up at level 3. And all of the other settlements are as well. And so, like I said, one of the things that I'm really looking forward to with this... Oh, did I not choose Sanctuary? I was pretty sure I chose it. Or maybe we're going to experience a nice live stream bug. That'd be fun. Let's find out, though. We're going to head over to... So I see Sanctuary didn't build. Let's head over to Red Rocket and see if that built. Because I honestly don't remember if I put Sanctuary in. I'm pretty sure I did, though. So we'll see if maybe we get a nice bug to show you guys right away. That'd be unfortunate because you have no idea how many times I've run through this sequence in the last 2 weeks. It's a little absurd. But if it didn't work, it's fine. I'll load up a different save. I don't think you guys are going to run into the same issue. And if you do, I'll hotfix it right away. because nobody wants to play through that opening sequence over and over again any more times than we already have. Yeah, it looks like it didn't work for some reason. So so we've got a nice live stream bug. Those are exciting. But let me get into one of my other saves here, because I've got some ready to go. All right, I think this one I did the city building. Let's check. Let's see. After killing Preston and all the other civilians in the museum, it doesn't remove the Freedom Calls quest from questing. Is this a bug? Yeah. So anything to deal with the quest log of after you kill Preston, we didn't deal with any of that yet. That's kind of one of those things where the amount of time it was going to take to go through and test every single quest in the game like that, we just didn't take the time to do it. So any of those, we have a special section in the bug reports to handle that. And just post those. It would be best if you include like a screenshot or at least the name of the quest and the exact words of the objective so we can find it. And essentially all we can do is monitor for those to trigger and then just cancel them. Because one of the things I didn't want to do was terminate the quests, because if some of you wanted to use like console commands and allow yourself to complete them anyway, we wanted to allow you to do that. So I'm going to show you now actually I wanted to show you guys some pre-built settlements. Oh yeah, okay, good. So this save, so the funny thing, this is the save I built right before I posted Conqueror live. I was like, I'm gonna do one more test and make sure it all worked, and of course worked fine, and then the live stream version didn't work. But this, I did the same thing, and all the settlements are built up already. So the first time you explore these, and I may have already come in here and explore this, but you get to see these full built out, and they've already got level 3 buildings in them. You can see there's these civilians, which you're going to start seeing. I'm sure there's a delay on the stream from where I'm at. But we've got custom voices, even custom voiced ghouls, and they just have different lines so you can experience something a little different. So this feels less like people asking you for food like is usual with the settlers, and it's just more random people you might meet like you would in Diamond City or whatever. And I'm going to see if there's any, I don't think there's any shops in our Red Rocket build for me to go shop at, but I'm going to go run back over to Sanctuary because I believe that has a bunch of stores set up. But yes, any of those quest bugs you receive where it's mentioning Preston or it's a quest that required Preston, if you want to report those, I will definitely dedicate some time to knocking those down, just because I know it's annoying to see all that, and it makes it feel like your progress doesn't matter and the game is not acknowledging what you're doing. So we definitely want to fix that. There we go. There's a full built sanctuary. Now, in my other save, it's possible that I left the randomization options on when I was showing them to you guys, and that might be why it didn't actually build them, because I've honestly never seen it not build the settlements in advance. So that was very shocking to me that happened. But I don't recall if I turned off the randomization before I started it, so maybe that was what happened. Hopefully that's what happened. I'll definitely be analyzing those quick saves to find out what happened. But let's see if we can find a shop here. I think there's a general store right up front. And nobody's home yet. So one of the things with the plots, and this is another reason that we didn't have Sanctuary and Red Rocket activate right away, is that there's so much stuff that has to run in the background to pull these off. I mean, you guys have seen how long it can take to build up a city plan and then level it all up. So one of the ways that Sim Settlements prevents it from just overwhelming and crashing your game is it kind of stagnates things out. So it will build up everything to start, and then it will slowly go through the plots and place down all the markers and everything. And eventually, by the time you're into your playthrough, by the time you're in a couple hours, absolutely everything will be built up. But you can see a lot of it is already placed. Like there's some of the animation markers already going on. We've got a guy up here in the corner who's just on guard duty. Some of these people are starting to clean up. So it tries to prioritize things in a way that will prevent breaking your immersion as much as possible. So likely one of the fixes that I'm going to do right away is for it to prioritize commercial plots, because I think that's one of the biggest advantages to using this from an immersion standpoint and from an actual gameplay benefits of, say, for example, if you want to do survival and want to get access to those resources, is having people available to sell you stuff right away would be super valuable. So that's likely a change that will come fairly early on in the patches. All right, let's see here. I'm gonna head back to questions while I make my way forward back to the Raider thing. I'm gonna do just the very beginning of the Raider sequence so you guys can see how to start it. But I don't wanna go into all of the actual dialogue and the individual quests. I'm gonna let you guys experience that for yourselves. But I just want to show you guys where you trigger that. So I'm gonna go back to questions while we're walking here. Are there any risk issues associated with choosing allow construction and vassal settlement setting to make it not a default option? Just curious. Let's see here. So the reason allow construction and vassal settlements, the reason it's not a default option is because I think a lot of people don't want to control the vassal settlements. And if you're a Nuka World player, you're not used to having to control those. Generally, they take care of themselves. I envision it as something like one of the cool things about the Conqueror mechanic is you set up outposts and they become kind of your military operation. And then any of the settlements you subjugate and turn into vassals essentially are the ones supplying you things, and then you're not in charge of managing them anymore. Instead, you're in charge of manning effectively your military operations. Now, in our quest here, you're operating a raider gang, but it essentially operates kind of like a military in that regard, just a little more rough around the edges, but in the sense that you're worried about your troops' equipment and how many of them you have, and whether or not you have enough to do runs and things like that. Like that becomes more of your focus. So the way I envision really the Conqueror system is either as an alternate gameplay, so you do it right away and like that just becomes your focus, or eventually I could see it becoming a thing, and there will be a tool to do this in the future, is your ultimate end game. So throughout your normal playthrough, you're building up your settlements, and then you'll have the option to start converting some of them into outposts and then change and add a new gameplay loop. And that's kind of one of the other ways I see this going. So there's no risk with turning on allow construction. I just don't have it as the default option because I don't think it's what most people are going to expect or want. Let's see. Is there a way to turn on civilians and have the civilian pool of NPCs added to the pre-existing settler pool instead of replacing it? Yeah, that would probably be a possibility we could add in the future. Right now, it doesn't replace it in the settlements that you take. So if you take control of the settlements, they will go back to producing settlers. So they're only producing civilians while you lack control of them. No. So one of the things, so I've always been, I should read the question. Have you considered giving the civilians names? I forget that I'm reading relayed chat that you guys may have seen pass a long time ago. Have you considered giving the civilians names? So we actually did name them, but I opted not to use them because to me, the reason that settlers don't have names is to make the ones that do have names stand out, because it's gonna, like, those become kind of red shirts. They're people that are, they're not important. They don't have special dialogue. They're not meant for you to get attached to them. And that's especially important in Conqueror because you're going to be killing a lot of them. So you shouldn't get attached to them. So I think that names would actually, would go counter to the goal of Conqueror, which is to get you into more of that spirit of murdering and pillaging. So we don't need the names because then that adds guilt. Let's see here. Will vassal settlements still upgrade levels? By default, no. But that'll likely be one of those. So this is another thing is I have a lot of settings in here right now that are not exposed to you guys yet, but I will be adding them. So if you have played with the mod for long, you know that I love giving you guys options. I love letting you choose how you play. So stuff like that, if you find that there's something that you'd like to see different, just make a suggestion on our forums. We have a suggestions section, and options are one of those things I'm real keen on adding. So because I can still keep the defaults the way I like to play it and then let you guys play it the way you want. So options, especially things like that are black and white, where it's like make it work like this instead of that, where it's just a switch. Those are ones that I'm ecstatic to add because they're easy and they let you play the game how you want to play it. You may have already answered this, but will it be compatible with other settlement mods that add settlements to the games? It should be. We did not test it. The only test I had is somebody in one of the early alphas said that one of their city plans wasn't working. Oh, God. You guys are going to hear something pretty funny, and I'm actually going to exit out of the game and fix. Yeah, that's my voice. So when we develop quests, one of the things we do is we record the voices ourselves in the game so that we can quickly test and see how it's working and know if we need to write up new lines or anything like that. Well, in this case, on this computer, this is the one I develop on, and I left my own voice files in place. So let's save this. And I am not going to have you guys all hearing me pretend to be a raider because it's not great. All right, let's exit out and try and find my way into my data files here. No, that's not it. Let's see. I have so much stuff installed. I was pretty sure I already deleted all of these, but maybe I missed some. Oh, there they are. Bye-bye. Okay, let's try that again. But yeah, long term, it will be, if it's not working now with custom settlements that have city plans, it absolutely will. So it matters that they have a city plan, obviously. And so far, as far as I know, there's only one mod author out there making city plans for third-party settlements, but I'm sure once we've made a pass on all of the vanilla settlements for the city plan contest, I'm sure we'll see other people wanting to try their hand at different settlements, and then we'll see more of the custom ones being made. And I think it's going to be, oh, the game audio is really quiet. Okay, I'll turn that up. But yeah, I think we'll see more of the custom settlements in the future as we start kind of endorsing them, I guess. So I think one of the things with settlement mods that's can be really tricky is you end up in a situation where because I think a lot of you know, if you're longtime Fallout 4 players, if you install a settlement mod, you can't remove it mid playthrough because it breaks your workshops array. And so I think a lot of people are hesitant about which ones to use, and then that makes it so that people are hesitant to even develop more content for them. But I know there are some of them that are done particularly well, and we might start promoting those. If you guys don't follow us on Facebook and Twitter, Rick and I throw up stuff periodically to try. Now I'm going to get distracted by Jammer, who's our raider. So anyway, we will periodically throw out mods and stuff that we recommend that you guys add to your Sim Settlements playthrough. So we might start tackling some of the custom settlements, and that might encourage more people to play around with them. So as soon as you get into Concord, you're going to have somebody shouting at you from this roof over here. And I'm going to go quiet while you guys listen to this. All right, can you guys hear the game now? I think I probably had the gameplay audio muted.
You may have to kill the settlers and the goody-goody. They don't matter though. Kill them if they're in your way, or leave them. Up to you. Personally,
no game audio. Oh, what is going on here? Oh, you guys have it now. Okay, it was just delayed.
come back to me when you're done.
So essentially, I should wait for the stream to catch up so you guys can hear him talk a little bit. Okay, so I think he finished his speech now. I'm looking at the stream. So essentially what happens is you get offered an alternative right away. So now you've got Preston on one side, and you've got our gang leader on the other, and you can make your decision from here about which route you want to go. Now, there's nothing stopping you from playing both sides. So the killing Preston is an optional objective. I highly recommend you do it at least once because it feels very good after years of playing with Preston, telling us about all the settlers that need help. It's nice to get a little vengeance on him. But it also, if you opt to do it, you get a pretty sweet perk, which you guys, some of you who are tuned into the beginning of the live stream saw how that perk works, and it's a lot of fun. All right, now there's one raider out here somewhere. I can hear her talking to me. Oh, I think Preston got her. But anyway, so I'm going to skip ahead now to another save. We're not going to go, you guys know what it's like to run into the museum, and then the actual killing of all of them. I'll let you guys experience that for the first time because it's quite satisfying. All right, now we're going to load up. We're going to skip ahead here. I'm going to load up to a save that hopefully works on here. This actually came from another computer. but it's a higher level save that I had that I've been playing in Conqueror, and I didn't have one on this computer, and I didn't want to start out a weak character because it takes forever to finish the raids if you're weak. That's one thing. If you're doing the Conquer route, if you're playing through the Raider quest, don't just focus on the Raider quest. You do need to go level up periodically for several reasons, which we'll go over now. Let's see here. You guys want the game audio a little louder? Okay, let me turn it up a little bit. Okay, all right, before I continue with this, I just want to catch up on all these questions. Will conquered settlements be able to be conquered by other factions or rebel and no longer work for you? Yes, eventually. That's part of our plans, and we'll talk about that after I go over the rest of the features. We'll talk about the future of Conqueror because we've got a lot of stuff queued up. All right, I'm going to play around with the audio settings here based on some feedback I'm getting from Rick here. We'll turn up the master. We'll turn down the effects and music. I've already got footsteps and radio off, so hopefully you guys can now hear the characters and not just everything in the game. Okay, so we're going to go and do some assaults so you guys can see how this works. So this is pretty late into the quest line. I think I've already captured several outposts and workshops. So one of the things I'm going to show you guys right here is if you look around this settlement. Now this, because I was focused on the Raider gang quest line in this particular save when I was testing and not the capturing, I actually didn't pre-build the city plans. Now you can do it either way. If you don't want to pre-build the city plans, it makes it real easy to capture because then all you have to do is capture or just kill a handful of guards. But you'll see that scattered around this settlement are Raider totems. Now, those are all placed dynamically after you capture a settlement and when you return the next time. So after I captured 10 Pines here and then I ran off and did some quests, when I came back, they had put up all these spikes and stuff, and they're all scrappable. So if the dynamic code picks a terrible spot, you can move or scrap them and kind of redecorate how you want. And you can turn this feature off. So if you don't like the automatic decoration, you can turn it off. And the system, once we have, and I'm going to talk about a pop-up that just came up in the corner. You guys are going to see it in a second about Nuka World. We're going to talk about that in a second. So once we get into the faction thing, the mod authors and add-on pack authors will be able to create those sorts of things for the factions too, and those can be automatically placed and peppered throughout the settlements, and they can even control kind of the settings in how it lays them out. So we call it the grid settings. Okay, so the Nuka World thing, that's actually an unfortunate side effect with having Nuka World installed while using this. Is Nuka World thinks that the Sim Settlements outposts and vassals are part of its system. And that is because I wanted to take advantage of the map. So I'm going to pop into the map here and show you guys. So Nuka World has this really cool feature where it highlights on the map your outposts with the skulls and chains, and then the vassals with the Pip-Boy with the thing around them. So I wanted to take advantage of that and make sure I could use that on the map. And so unfortunately that flagged them for Nuka World. I'm sure it's something I'll be able to work my way around, but it's just going to take some time. So that'll happen with more Nuka World integration. So I'm going to pause on questions for a bit and start showing you guys some more of this. So once you capture a settlement, that's one thing that happens. If you had any Sim Settlements plots, and I have another save I can show you that, it will apply any of the faction skins that are available to those buildings. And I'm going to talk about all that in a bit here. I'll show you those systems. But first, I'm going to wake up Jammer here. Jammer's the name of that guy. Oh, we've got the blackface bug. That's exciting. This is not a bug from Sim Settlements. This is a bug in Fallout 4. I'm sure some of you guys have seen.
Nice job,
where
boss.
the characters have
Gotta
a different
break
color
less
skin
limbs
on their
next
face
time,
than the rest
though.
of their body.
Slows down the supply.
It's
What's
really
the play,
ridiculous.
boss?
And the fix usually is just to reboot the game, but I'm not going to bother. You guys can deal with him having an interesting color. All right, so the way I'm going to first just show you guys an attack, and then we'll go over some of these other options.
Get the troops ready for the attack.
So, what'll it be, boss? You looking for somewhere new to settle? You want to do some farming?
All right, so we're actually going to do a slaver outpost because I don't think I have one in this. And
all right. I'd welcome the help.
Well, by
so
all
I think
means,
somebody just asked about settler
let's find
slaves.
you
So.
some help, yeah?
All right, so this is one of those things that after you start it up, there's some pop-up messages to teach you the way it works. So the way the enslavement runs are essentially they're the same as setting up an outpost, except instead of killing all the settlers, you collar them and turn them into workers for your outpost so that you can get some free labor, and it keeps your the rest of your guys free up to do combat so they can go on their raids and stuff. All right, so we're going to choose a spot. Let's see, what's close to 10 Pines? Is Outpost on here? Yeah, Outpost of Munch is pretty close. All right, so we're going to go
You're the boss. Let's talk crew.
enslave everybody up in Outpost. Now, there's a chance, because I didn't do the pre-build, that Outpost of Munch is actually empty, and there's not going to be anybody to enslave, but that's fine.
Just a few.
All right, so here's one of the points where we differ from Nuka World. So a lot of this is going to feel very similar to Nuka World, because I think so the Nuka World rating mechanic wasn't. I thought it was missing something, and I think what it was missing was the pre-built settlements. But I also think it was missing a risk factor. It was too easy, and so we wanted to make it a little more interesting. So rather than you just getting a few random NPCs spawned that join you on your assault, instead you actually send your troops. So you actually send the raiders that live at your outposts, and you can choose between 5 and 15 of them if you have them. Like I only have 12, so that's as many as I can send. And those exact NPCs will go join you. So you can pre-gear up all of your raiders in preparation for them to go. Now, eventually... Now, this is just the interface for now. This is one of those things I mentioned where we're going to try and implement one part of a system at a time, get it all working perfectly before we do the next system. So one of the next systems is going to allow you to choose the actual members that you want to send. So if you want to set yourself up like a certain death squad of guys that are geared to the teeth, you'll be able to make sure you send those. Or if you want to send your companions and things like that. So all that will come in the future, but for now, it's just kind of random. It does focus on your main headquarters, which is the first outpost you establish, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I'm gonna send 7.
Confident, huh? Hey, if you can swing it, I got no beef.
Screens are a bit dark. Yeah, I can.
They'll be
Let me
waiting for
up
you
the time
outside
scale.
the
Sorry,
target.
guys. I'm not reading the chat constantly. Let's see. Set game. About 11 a.m. Here we go. Nice and bright. Okay, so that'll catch up for just a
Still
second.
rocking that old wolf in sheep's clothing vibe.
All right, and Zamonja's real close. All right, so just like Nuka World, you'll get a map marker, and it will be near the settlement, and you go meet up with your squad over there before they start up. So you can leave them for up to 24 hours. They'll wait for you, and then after that, they will just kind of run ahead without you. Or I'm sorry, they'll return to base. And it affects a morale score, which is invisible right now. That's another thing that's on the future plan is a full UI overhaul for this. So I want to have things like troop management UI. I want to have all of the mechanics for outposts in the UI. Like all of that is coming in the future. All right, so we are going to meet up with our squad and do a run on these guys here. So as soon as you meet up with them, their AI triggers and they will run in. So in Nuka World, I believe you can talk to them and gear them up in advance. For this, we just assume you're going to gear them up before you get here, or before you ever even send them out. Oh God, we got a fat man gunner. So one of the things we did is we have the settlers will hire guards. So depending on your notoriety level, so the more bad deeds you've done in the game, and that includes taking on raids, the more guards they will hire to protect against your attacks. Oh, I think I've got God mode on. I was like, this is so easy. Because this is generally actually very challenging. So one of the things that's different also about our Nuka raids is your squad has to survive. At least one member of your squad has to survive or you will lose the raid. And that is going to be very useful to know in a few minutes when we talk about some of the other mechanics. So let's take out this lieutenant here. All right, who else is still here? Oh, the raiders were still here from before. So one of the things is when you start up the city plan code, it will clear out, or it will attempt to anyway. It will attempt to clear out all the enemies that start there. And since we didn't run that, those raiders were still there. That's where that fat man was coming from. Oh man, this is extra gory, good and raidery. All right, did we take everybody out? I don't know if my squad survived or not. Failed. Okay, yeah. So if you fail it, essentially you've got to go back and you got to make sure that some of your raiders survived. My raiders all got wrecked by the guy with the nuke, so that's unfortunate. All right, so let's talk about those the raiders and stuff like that now. So there's a couple of things coming down the pipes with the raiders. So right now, there's a couple things you can do, because one of the things you're going to immediately find out is that those raiders can be very weak because their AI is very dumb. And sometimes you're going to get frustrated, especially in some of the more heavily fortified settlements. So there's a few things you should know. One is that the raiders that are spawned that are recruited every day are level listed to your character. So the higher level your character, there's a point, like there are certain thresholds where the raiders you recruit will be higher level. So when you get to, I think it's level 9 is the first upgrade where your recruits will start being higher level. So that's one thing you can do, is go level yourself up and then allow more recruitment to occur. And there are a couple ways you can do recruitment, which I'll show you here. So let me actually, I'm going to pause the game so I'm not so distracted while I'm talking about this. So that's one thing you can do. Another, you can gear them up, and that obviously will have a big impact. And I think somebody else asked a question similar to this. So let me read through these questions here. How much of this expansion was Uwit's idea? Uwit definitely inspired to go full raider route. So all of this combat stuff is kind of like the types of things that were on my dream mod list and the Conquer system. But doing it with a raider skin was definitely thanks to Uwit, because he showed me how cool the aesthetic could be. Let's see here. If you play the good route, AK not siding with the raiders, do you still get attacked by raider gangs? Like, what interactions do we experience because of Conqueror when going this route? So right now, if you don't go the raider route, the primary things you're going to gain out of Conqueror are going to be the access to the new building skins, which a lot of those are actually, the paint job versions are all stored in the 4.0 of some settlements. So primarily you're going to get access to some new buildings. We've got some new plots available, and then most of the mechanics outside of the raider stuff is stored in Sim Settlements 4.0. So any of the Conquer stuff and any of the benefits and making outposts for good guys, that's going to come later. So right now, this is all about that evil playthrough. Everything is tied into our raider stuff, and it'll be expanded out in future patches so that people can mod in whatever factions they want to use it. And we'll have a baseline of like the major factions so that you can use them. They just won't be super fleshed out. It'll be like you can, set up a settlement to work for them, and it'll have like basic guards and basic recruits, but it's not going to be, having like raiders, like the building skins and the totems and all that. Like that's the type of stuff we want to see add-on pack authors develop. So if any of you have ever been looking to get involved in that, learning how to build stuff for some settlements is really easy. We take a lot of time to build detailed tutorials, and there's even now video content coming out that Captain Coots does to help teach you how to do it. So anybody who wants to get involved in Sim Settlements dev and speed up some of those factions, we'd definitely love to see you join in on that fun, because it's a big job to do this. I mean, essentially, even just doing this raider level of stuff it takes months and months to do. So we can't do everything. We do have to choose our battles, because this is volunteer, free time stuff. Let's see here. Can you wait a few hours and up the light level? Okay, I already did that. Can you go to the to-be attack settlement first to recon how many people are there, and then come back and choose how many people to send? So you're aware of your risk. Oh, absolutely. In fact, one of the first raider perks you get when you start playing through the raider quest is called scouting, and it allows you to mark locations on your map for raiding just by getting within range of them. So you're encouraged to actually go scout out your targets before you engage. Let's see here. Will you be able to send robots you build with Automatron DLC if you want to play as a Rust Devil? Not yet, but that is something we definitely want to have. We want you to be able to send. Actually, you might be able to. Now that I think about it, I'm not sure. I didn't test that, but just running it through my head how the system works when it grabs members, it might actually grab robots. So I'd recommend you test it and let me know if it works. Because if it doesn't, it's something we want to work. We want you to be able to send more than just the typical raiders. We want you to be able to send whoever you like on your raids. Is there a chance to go full Brotherhood? Again, like I said, we'll do a basic thing for all of the factions, and then if you want something more in depth, it's hopefully the community will start to put together all the visual aspects and things like that, and things like these quests where you're actually we actually have a quest line and people to talk to. That we're 100% only going to be doing for the raiders, just because it's so involved. It just adds a huge level of complexity.
What the shit was that? My ghoul granny could have done better, and she's fucking feral. Fuck's sake, were you even trying? Catastrophic! At least this wasn't a total fucking loss. I think we got enough guys
I'm gonna be
to
quiet
try
here
again.
while you guys
Provided
listen
you don't act
to
like such a
Jammer
fucking
get pissed at
tooligan.
me.
Ready?
Things just got interesting.
So let's see. One more question came up. When do you hope to have the Builder's Toolkit updated for these new features? I would say so. There's some more extrapolation I have to do. So a lot of the features, a lot of the features are very Raider centric right now in the code, in that they're like stored right within Jammer's loop. And I need to extract those out. And once I get that done, I can put the Builder's Toolkit together for those new features. But I would say within 4 to 6 weeks, I should have all of that ready to go. So within 2 or 3 patches, since we're going to be doing the bi-weekly patches like we did for the other expansions, and we'll have more content. And we actually have more than just my little updates with patches. We actually have more story stuff coming and things like that, but we'll talk about that in a bit here. There's not nearly the delay that Kinggath thinks there is. See, so the reason that I keep pausing for a delay is because I have the stream up on one of my monitors, and I've been waiting for that to catch up. But I'm glad there's less of a delay. Okay, so we're gonna go through the recruitment option now and show you
We
guys how
need
that
an
works.
army, not a few stragglers.
Not a bad idea. Let's recruit some more guys. You got any chems, booze, or caps to grease the wheels? Hand them over now and I'll get on it.
So essentially, you donate things to up recruitment. So rather than being like a normal settlement where you just get new settlers on a chance every day, instead, you actually can influence it. So you essentially can buy more soldiers. So you can use caps. You can for the raiders, you can turn in drugs or chems rather and alcohol, and that will increase the recruitment rate. So right now, I believe it's a cap of 5 new recruits every day you can get, and it happens at around the same frequency as the settler recruitment. So like once a day, Jammer will go out and recruit a bunch of new raiders for you based on the resources he has. And one of the things when we talk about that, the faction stuff, is for each faction, they'll have different things you can donate. So every faction ideally will have this recruitment mechanic, but it might be, maybe the Brotherhood wants you to find them oddball pieces of tech like military circuit boards or guns or something. And like each of the factions will have a thematic thing that you can turn in to build up your recruitment levels. So the idea there is with your raiders that you're sending in on these attacks, they're a little more disposable. And this once again goes back to the idea why we don't want to name them, because you're not going to be keeping them. I tend to think of this mechanic more like an RTS in that regard, of that your army, some of these guys are going to die. You're not meant to keep all of them around, but we do ultimately want you to be able to have, some number of them, where you start to build up your little squad of guys that you want to see live and survive. And we're going to offer you the mechanics to do that. But for now, anticipate these are very disposable soldiers. And so you're going to want to donate caps and trade things in order to build up enough guys so that you can take on some of the bigger settlements. So especially when you get into the level 3 cities, some of them are pretty dang brutal as far as how many turrets and how many guys will be spawned. And then, like I said, the more settlements you capture, the higher your notoriety level gets, and the higher or the stronger the guards are going to be that pop up at the settlements when you're attacking them. So it gets progressively more difficult as you're going. All right, so I think I got enough guys to make another run.
Meat for the meat grinder.
But actually, we don't need to. So I think you guys saw essentially what's going to happen there. Essentially, you make those runs. Now we're going to talk about the different types. So there's the outposts. So these essentially are your bases. You don't have to worry about happiness in them. Your only concern right now, and some of these mechanics are going to change in the future. We're going to continue to tweak it. Like I want to convert happiness into more of a morale system. But right now, I'm going to just talk about how the mechanics work today. So essentially, you don't have to worry about happiness. You're never going to lose your outposts once you have control of them. In the future, the outposts, you guys have asked me about the control and people taking them. Yes, that will be a thing. But right now, you don't have to worry about happiness. All you have to worry about is having enough beds or residential plots to house your troops. Essentially, that becomes your cap. So if you have 15 beds in your outpost, then you can have up to 15 troops there. If you go build 40 beds, you can have 40 troops there, but I don't recommend that. I would say you need to learn your system's maxes before you decide how many you want to build up. I would say if you got a strong PC, you could probably do that. You could do 40, 50 of them. If you're on Xbox, I wouldn't do more than 20. I would keep it low unless you're not building up the settlement. So that's the other thing is like right now. So I have my outpost here. It's pretty much empty. I've basically just got the crops that were here. So here I could just build old school bunkhouses, throw down some beds, and it wouldn't be a problem. But if you're playing on Xbox and you built the city plans, then throwing in 30 settlers is almost certainly going to be a problem for you. So it's kind of up to you on how many soldiers you want to have here, and then that's again more mechanics in that regard, and balancing that all out will come in the future. So outposts, essentially, your focus is on the people. You want to build up and recruit strong members, and make sure you have enough beds to do them. Now, all of their food needs and everything that will ultimately affect what's going to become the morale, all of that will come from the vassals, which are these ones right here. I have only Abernathy Farm right now. So vassals were a system that were actually in Nuka World that we're taking on, but we're changing it a little bit. So in Nuka World, essentially what the vassals would do, and this is something that popped up in the corner earlier, and I said I was going to mention, and I think I forgot. But what Nuka World does is each of your vassals will make donations back to Nuka World Red Rocket. And I didn't think that was enough. I thought that made it kind of lame, because it's like, oh, well, if it's just stuff, well, I could have had that by owning the settlement. There really wasn't enough of an advantage. So now you'll see that there are supply lines between all of my outposts and my my vassals, and essentially that means that all of these are sharing resources just like normal settlements. So if I want to build stuff, I don't have to have any resources in the workbench here at Ten Pines. If it's it will also take them from Abernathy. And the same goes for things like food and water, is that my needs can be covered by the other settlements, so they're all linked together. So that's one of the benefits. Another is that depending on the options you have, so there's an option if you go into, I'm going to bring up actually I'm going to do it in MCM because it's just quicker if assuming I have it installed on here. So I'm going to go over these Conqueror options. Do I have it installed on here? No, I don't. Okay, let's get into the holotape then. We'll go into options, gameplay, and then there should be a separate Conqueror menu. Here we go. Okay, so control vassal settlements is off by default. If you turn that on, then you actually manage the vassals just like a normal settlement. So then essentially there is a way here you can keep some settlements for yourself and leave them operating normally, but they are meant to feed all of your outposts and you can control them. Or if you want to do the full, you're just interested in the combat side of things and the conquer, that's the way you want to play. You can leave this option off, which it is by default, and then those settlements will just provide resources in one direction, and you don't have to worry about micromanaging them. As long as you have control, or as long as this is your vassal, it's got this little symbol around it, it will continue to produce resources for you. So it will produce resources in a couple of ways. If it's making more food and water than it has settlers, then all the extra food and water will be available for your outposts to use, and any taxes that they would normally pay from some settlements will all be deposited in your outpost workbenches instead. So that becomes kind of your tribute, and then you can take those taxes and use them to fund the recruitment efforts to get more raider recruits. So it kind of sets up a gameplay loop like that. Your soldiers are getting chewed up in the grinder as you're going out trying to conquer more, and then the vassal settlements you're capturing are generating more caps, and you can continue to rebuild your army. And then let's see. Okay, I'm gonna go back to some questions here. Can our civilians die while in the settlements too? Okay, so that's a tricky question. So basically, if you go attack a settlement and you go to make it an outpost, so you had those three options. So let's go back to Jammer's dialogue here.
Wanted?
Oop. Yeah,
Hi.
come on, buddy.
More meat for the meat grinder. What's the play, boss?
Get the troops ready for the
All right, so I'm
attack.
gonna bring up the attack menu
what'll
here.
it be, boss? You looking for somewhere new to set?
So on the attack menu, you have three options. So you've got setup outpost. And when you do a setup outpost, you are literally going to walk in and murder everybody in that settlement. The exception are going to be companions or NPCs that are marked essential. Those you can't kill unless you have the executioner perk, which we talked about that earlier, and you saw a little video of it. Then there's the slaver outpost, which... Oh, I'm sorry, let's go back. So on the outpost, not only do you kill everybody, but then you turn that into an outpost. So it becomes one of your military settlements that can build up troops. Then if you do slaver outpost, that also becomes a military outpost, but all of the people that were there that you knocked out, all the settlers and civilians, you will enslave them, and then they become workers that can operate your farms and industrial, and they cannot operate martial or commercial for immersion reasons that you can turn off that reason and give an exception if you like. But by default, they can only operate the other 4 plot types. And so your slaves essentially, right now, they don't serve a huge purpose other than just being very thematic and immersive. I mean, they obviously they offer work. So if you're not going to do a lot of vassals, or if you don't, if you want to just do outposts, it just gives you more options. You can have them working, knowing that all the rest of your raiders that are living at those at the outposts can go on the combat missions, because the slaves won't be sent on those missions. Then there's the pillage run, which is what you use to set up the vassals. So essentially, on a pillage run, you go in, you beat everybody into submission, kill the guards, and then from then on, that settlement will continue to send resources. Now, that is until we get the next level of mechanics on, which is the control system, and that's part of the long-term game plan for this, and that's going to be that some of the other factions in the Commonwealth, depending on what you're doing in the story and what's in the area, etc., and there'll be a lot of factors that are involved in it, will try and take those back from you. So they'll free those vassals. And I've also got ideas for systems like them revolting, all that stuff. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. I want to stop getting sidetracked and focus on everything that's in right now for you guys to play with. All right, let's go back to the questions. Let's see. If we plan to kill Preston right off the bat, would it be safe to choose the castle as a pre-built settlement with the Mirelurks and Queen being dealt with, or will they attack when we visit the first time? Yeah, you could choose it. One of the things, if you're planning on killing the Minutemen off, yeah, you could definitely choose that safely. The Mirelurks and Queen, so the game Sim Settlements attempts to clear all that stuff out for you, but it's not always successful, and that just has to do with the way references work in the game, is that they're not all loaded into memory, because the game would be a disaster if every enemy was loaded in memory at all the time. So it tries to kill those for you in advance, as if like the settlers who moved in did it, or the enemies were killed long before you ever woke up from your cryo sleep. But it doesn't always succeed. So occasionally you'll show up at the settlement, and all of the civilians will be in a heated battle with whoever lived there before. And the Mirelurk Queen at Murkwater is a common one that gets screwed up like that. Now, I assume long term I'll come up with a permanent solution. Right now, it can be like 50-50. Like this playthrough I did, I haven't run into any of the enemies aside from the raiders up at Zamonja. But one of my testers had just reported that all of the civilians were wiped out at Mirelurk recently because of the queen there. I find that adds a little extra flavor, and then eventually they'll recoup those settlers or those civilians anyway during just normal gameplay rules. So I find it just adds a little more fun to the dynamic systems. Let's see. What about taking slaves, trading them for caps? So, oh wait, I think I skipped a question here. As a person that doesn't have much knowledge on Creation Kit, besides becoming a patron, how can I help you with your projects? There's a recruitment thread, and maybe somebody who's on the team who's watching could go grab this from the forums and post it. I would say 90% of the people on the Sim Settlements team had no modding experience whatsoever before they joined up. We need people with all sorts of skills. I mean, obviously now we need tons of voice actors. We needed writers at one point. We've got people who do theater direction. Like, you'd be shocked at the amount of skills that go into making a game. And we've got enough people now who are, comfortable with all the systems that they can teach you those, the things that are specific to games that maybe you don't know. So watch out for the recruitment thread if you're looking to join up in that way, if you want to help out more. But we do have, like I said, the Builder's Toolkit is designed to teach anybody. So if you want to get involved in your own creations, that helps Sim Settlements. And then obviously you mentioned, besides becoming a patron, obviously Patreon is a great way to support, because it lets us purchase cooler things than we deserve to have. So like we can buy assets when we need them, and we pay for our server space and our team space for organizing everything. So every little bit helps in that regard. Let's see here. What about taking slaves, trading them for caps? So aside from the slaver outpost method, the other way you can get slaves is after you do your first enslavement run and successfully complete it. Like I just failed because my squad got fat-manned. But when you complete it, you will get the slaver perk. And the slaver perk lets you craft slave collars, and you can use them on anybody in the downed state. So you can like go on pillage runs and capture a bunch of their civilians as slaves and then send them over to your outposts. So you do have the ability to capture more. We don't have a method for you to trade them or sell them for caps. That might be something we add in the future. We're definitely looking to add more evil gameplay loops, more dark stuff you can do, so you can really get into that character. And so those type of things, like those type of Radiantes type of things, will show up in patches in the future as we expand on the Raider series. Let's see here. Does this mod modify attacks on your own settlements? I saw in one of the pop-ups it said that enslaved settlers increase settlement attack chance. So your outposts have a chance to be attacked, especially your main outpost is especially susceptible to attack, and that system is going to continue to be expanded on and adapted, I should say, to your playstyle. So as you're doing more evil things in the world, you're going to draw on the ire of more people, but then that's going to be balanced on how powerful you are, where some people will be intimidated. There's going to be a whole lot more mechanics going into that. Right now it's pretty rudimentary, and one of the things I was going to show you guys, and I didn't expect to fail my raid run, is I know I'm at a point in the story where I'm about to get a forced attack on my main base. And I was going to show you guys how the defense works, but it works very similarly to the default vanilla raids, except they're way more hardcore. Some of them are easy. There'll be some that you'll find that are like, oh, that was just, like 6 guys, like a typical vanilla raid. But the system for our raid system is way more in depth. We can do a lot more things. We can do like attack waves, and we can attack with anything. We can have the factions attack you. And that's just going to get deeper and deeper. So right now it's fairly rudimentary, but the code is in place for us to really expand on it, and that's something I really want to play with because it's a lot of fun. Let's see here. So yes, it only takes control of the attacks on your outposts. It doesn't affect the normal attacks on your vanilla settlements. So if you take over a settlement like normal, like you don't go the Raider route or you don't do the Conqueror route to set up outposts, those settlement attacks are unaffected. It's only the ones on outposts that we control with Conqueror. Can you enslave companions? Probably. I actually never tested that, but I don't think I specifically excluded it. But those are the sorts of gameplay interaction systems where I really want a lot of feedback on, and those are great things to put on. That's one of those things where it's like, you got to tell me how you like it. Like, does it feel really obnoxious? Does it seem super unimmersive? Does it break the game? But for the most part, I tried not to limit any of these systems and just let them work openly. So like, for example, the execute mechanic lets you literally, like, you could walk up to Elder Maxon, punch him in the face, and then break his neck. And it allows you to do that. Because I want to just see where these go. We'll find all the little flaws and flukes in that type of thing, and we'll get them fixed. But, the way I approach this is that you're playing a bad guy. Your goal is not to see the same stuff you've already done. So we let you break the game, and we let you just have fun and just do chaos, because that's what the rating's all about. It's about chaos. So I really embraced it with the gameplay mechanics, and I didn't cap a lot of them. So you're going to find probably some interesting things that we didn't think about doing that maybe cause some bad experiences or maybe cause some really fun experiences. So I'm definitely excited to hear you guys' reports on some of the nuance of that, because when we're testing, I mean, we don't have an unlimited amount of time to test. We've got a handful of folks. That's another thing. Oh, going back to that person who asked how they can help. I am always interested in dedicated testers. So if you love like diving in and breaking things and like getting into the nitty gritty, and you're happy to play with like half-cocked mechanics to just test them out, and do research, and you have a lot of availability, like those, I definitely can use those. We've got a couple of folks on the team. Shout out to Crazy Horse and Wood Fuzzy especially, who make a crazy amount of time for some settlements. But the more testers we have, the more thorough we can give these things a thrashing and make sure that they're in fighting shape before we get them out to you guys. So if you're interested in testing, any of you are players, you're capable of doing that. The one exclusion with that is I almost exclusively need testers on PC. It's really hard to test on Xbox. Just because you essentially have to have a copy of the game on PC as well, so that you can upload yourself private mods, since Bethesda took our ability away to do private mods, which makes it a real pain in the butt to test out features on Xbox. So I generally only want PC testers. So yeah, you can probably enslave companions. I don't know. I'd love to hear if you can and what happens. Are you supposed to be using something like knockout framework so you can actually knock out civilians? Because when you attacked, like you slaughtered everybody. So that's the type of attack. So, because I didn't pre-build the cities, when I ran a slaver outpost, there was no one to enslave there. There were no civilians or settlers living there. It was literally just the guards that got spawned, and so there was just nobody to enslave. So that it lets you murder the guards, and then you would enslave all of the civilians and the settlers. So that's one of the downsides of not using the pre-built cities is it's too it's just very unimmersive to capture the empty settlements. But for the sake of entertaining gameplay, we still let you do the attack runs on them because it's fun to meat grind your raider army into piles of gunners and stuff. Let's see here. Do you need any farmers on the team? I assume that's how Jammer keeps talking about farmers. Not American accents for voice acting. It's pretty rare. Occasionally we need people with accents for like the Mr. Handies and stuff like that. But for the most part, it tends to be people doing variations on American accents just because that's we're trying to keep our stuff, our voice acting as close to like feeling like it belongs in the game as possible. So like we've got really good sound guys who spend a lot of time to make sure that the volume levels are all matching the default game, and we put a lot of effort into keeping everything feeling immersive so it doesn't feel out of place. And so people with too many people with accents can start to feel weird. Like occasionally, like having like there's a couple in the game, like the guys at the inn. Like Vlad, I think the guy's name is, and then like Kate has the accent. So occasionally it's it's useful for us to put an accent in, but only for specific characters as opposed to doing it across the board on these random NPCs. And we tend to do a lot of our voice acting is little small characters just for background filler, to just kind of bring some more life into the Commonwealth. Though now that we're getting into this idea of new features need quests to teach you them, it's definitely going to expand our need for voice actors and have more characters and things like that, just because it just makes it way more interesting to play these mechanics and learn them if you also have a story behind it. Okay, so I think that covers everything on the rating system.
Not right now.
Yeah, you're the boss.
So if anybody has any more
Come back
questions
when you're
before we
ready.
move on from the actual pillaging runs,
Boss.
essentially
In trouble?
your gameplay goal is to take on all the settlements and either turn them into vassals or outposts for the raiders. That's kind of their MO. That's what they're looking to do in our little story, is to take over. And so yeah, you can do that however you please. Whether you get to choose whether you want it to be outposts or vassals, or if you want to make slave colonies, and you go from there. One thing you guys may have noticed with all the raiders wandering around is that they are using the Nuka World gang voices, but they don't look like those raiders. So that is a little trick I did to give some more variety to the voices, because the default raiders in the game, they have a lot of cool, like, funny conversations between each other, and they have a lot of good combat lines, but that's it. They don't have any hellos, like, so when you walk up to them, they'd be stone silent. And we plucked out a handful that would work, but it just wasn't deep enough. So if you have Nuka World installed, then there's a chance that your settlers will acquire, or your raiders will acquire the Nuka World voices. And one of the downsides to that is occasionally they mention the Nuka World characters, even if you haven't been to Nuka World. But we figure that's a small sacrifice, because for all you know, some of these guys could have been recruited from the park even before you go take it over. Like, it exists without you having to go there. So we kind of view it that way. And as you can see, there's still a lot of corpses down here. This is from my when I took over 10 Pines. It didn't go well for me. All right, I'm going to bring up the feature list on the site so I can see if there's anything else I didn't cover here. Let's go over the building plan skins real quick. So I'm going to go into workshop mode here. And we'll build some plots. So all of the 2x2 plots from the building plans from Vanilla Sim Settlements. So there was like 11 houses, the 6 shops, the industrial building, the farm, the checkpoint marshal plot, and the central park for find somewhere I can put one. All right, you got to come down. And the central park for the recreational plot. All of those, Uit designed some raider skins for. And anytime you have an outpost that's controlled by your raiders, those buildings can use those raider skins. In fact, when you take over, so if this had been a Sim settlement that I had taken over from a raid, they would automatically get those skins applied, and you can change them. And the skins are accessed. You just go into the ASAM sensor, and you go to Customize Plot, and then you'll find Building Plan Skins here. And one of the cool things about the building skins is they're much easier to make. In fact, all of these paint jobs are just a material swap. And if you've never done a material swap, it's the easiest possible mod you can make. Well, one of the things we set up is that these skins, you can make them for any other building. It doesn't even have to be your own. So if you're not ready to commit to a full add-on pack, or you know how to make them, but you just want to add some more variety quickly, you can do material swaps and simple building swaps and things for other people's add-on packs with the new skin system. And the tutorial for that will go up very soon, because that's, based on information that most people would already have from going through Builder's Toolkit. It's just a slight change on that. But the building skins, essentially, other people can add to each other. So if somebody really got on a kick of doing material swaps, or had a big set of textures in their add-on pack and wanted to offer them up to the buildings in other people's add-ons, they'd be able to do that, which is a really cool feature. So in this particular building, it looks like it has assigned to the Boat Shack, which is what all of these are getting applied to. And I've got the Boat Shack of Horrors by Uit as one of the options. And so when you apply, so essentially with the building skins, they're just slight variations on the existing building. So generally, the building model itself will be the same. It'll either have a material swap or it won't. And then some of the clutter might change. So in this case, for our Raider ones, Uit went pretty hardcore, especially with the level 3. And they've got all the usual tropes of Raiders. Lots of spikes, the tents, the barbed wire, corpses, and just all sorts of stuff to make your settlements feel like something out of Mad Max. And while we're waiting for that to build up, I'm also going to throw down one of the new heavy agricultural plots. So the heavy agricultural plot, the 3x3, this is our first 3x3 plot, and this is one of those things, it's kind of an experiment. One of the things that's really wonky with the 3x3 is placement can be very difficult because of how big they are. And so that's one of those things that Workshop Plus can help out with. So if you haven't tried that mod out, Workshop Plus lets you fly around in workshop mode easily, and that makes it much easier to place these. One of the things that's also not in yet, but XV Versus was kind enough to do for us, is some 3x3 foundations, and I'll be adding those in one of the first patches, so that you have some foundations to snap these to, so that they're not just kind of floating in the sky. But if you're using place everywhere or place anywhere, you might want to nudge this down into the ground so it's not floating. Like I'm going to leave it floating. But the two in Conqueror, there are 2 building plans for this, and they're both super Raider themed. In fact, they are set up for a mechanic that isn't quite implemented yet, or it's implemented, but I disabled it because I found a bad bug with it, and I didn't want you guys to suffer the bug. Eventually, what you'll be able to do is kind of dual assign these. So if you decide to go the slaver route, you'll be able to assign a slave to work it and a Raider to guard it, and then you'll gain access to the food inside of your outpost without having to have the negative happiness effects that normally come. But again, that's still down the road, but just know that that's why these particular building plans are designed the way they are, is they're designed to have, and let's see, we'll set up the pike farm. They're designed to have one person working in the middle while somebody else is standing guard on them, so they have a particular look to them that's different than the traditional farm. Now, in hindsight, what we should have done is designed normal 3x3 farms and then did skins for the Raider. But when we were designing the 3x3 agricultural plots for this system, the skins didn't exist yet. The skins were something I came up with later. And so it was kind of like the ship had already sailed, so we missed out that opportunity to take advantage of this new system. One thing you're going to notice with the 4.0 patch, if you're an experienced Sim Settlements player, is that things tend to, some of the building plans will tend to pop a little more. So like these, and this one I can see there's already an alignment issue, so I'm going to jot that down as a bug to fix. But it's just with one of the building stages, so it's not a super big deal. But essentially, one of the things we found, we can save a mass amount of space. I think I can shave 250 to 300 megabytes off of the mod size by switching to this method. Is we can actually spawn static collections as building stages. One of the downsides of that is that they kind of pop in instead of fading in, but I think it's a worthy sacrifice to cut off that much space from the mod, especially for those of you on Xbox, because you guys are limited hard on space, especially when you take into account how big Sim Settlements is with all the expansions. And so I'm hoping that at either the next patch or the one after, I will have shaved off several hundred megabytes, so that net, even with 3-in-1 plus Conqueror, it's actually smaller than it was before Conqueror, is what I think we're going to end up with. So that's something to look forward to if you're on Xbox. So yeah, so these 3x3 farms, the way they work is they produce 50% more food than a 2x2 farm, but they have steeper requirements on things like defenses, and they also require power, and there's one other thing about them. Oh, and more water. So they basically just have more requirements if you're using dynamic needs on them. And then in outposts, there's a mechanic that all farms produce half food, just because your guys are busy. You know, they're raiders. They're soldiers. They're not farmers, and so they're not going to be doing a good job at producing food. And that's one of those points that when we work on it some more and we continue to evolve the system, that's something that likely the slaves will be useful for, is producing more food than your raiders would. But that stuff's all it's all being fleshed out. So like I said, we're rolling the systems out in chunks so that you guys can give us feedback and we can get things operating perfectly. So like this first edition of Conqueror is essentially focused on the Conquer system and building up a raider gang, and then we're gonna go from there and keep evolving it.
You ever get tired of bothering me?
Thank you, Jammer. So one of the things that I think a lot of you guys are going to be excited about is this little setting. Oh, I forgot I don't have MCM on here, so I'm going to go back in the holotape. One of the things I added in here is something that only made sense with the pre-build city plans, and I'm going totally off topic, but what you guys don't see is on one of my other screens, I have a list of all the features. So I have some reason to my, or some method to my madness here. But under city building, there's a new option now, which is to turn off a leader required on city plans. So you can now just build up as many city plans as you want, even without the pre-start, and you don't have to have somebody running them if you don't want. So if you, for balance reasons, that was that was always to me a balance thing. It was something like it limited your ability to just build those cities for free. You always had to commit one of your companions to it. But you know, like I said, I always love to add more options to let you guys play the game how you want to play it. So if you don't care about that, you can turn that requirement off and just go nuts, and you don't have to worry about having more leaders and stuff. But even if you do that, if you turn that off, you can still use the leaders to gain their traits that give the benefits to your settlements. But they're now an optional requirement to actually build the city plans. All right, so now I have been avoiding all the questions Rick's been posting for a while now, so let me jump back over to there. Let's see here. Oh, at one point the stream was offline. How much did you guys miss? I hope not too much. I hope I wasn't talking to myself for too long. Bummer. I should have. It's funny. I have the stream up and I didn't see any hiccup in it. Oh well. All right. See, let's wondering if there are any features outside that we would experience alongside with Conqueror, outside getting the option to side with the Raiders or Preston early game. Let's see. Outside of, so most of the features that are in this are driven by this Raider quest. But all of the subsystems that run that don't require the Raider quest. So it's just going to be a matter of time before we allow other factions to get involved, before we open it up to modding. In fact, anybody who's reasonable at coding could reverse engineer what we've done. Tomorrow, I was going to do it today, but I just didn't have the time, and I'm definitely not going to do it after the stream because I need to get some sleep at some point. But the workshop framework code is open source, and I will upload the 1.10 feature, and you'll see the new systems that actually you'll be able to see right away how they run. We're just calling a few functions to handle the capturing and the assaults. And so theoretically, somebody could reverse engineer what we've already done with Raiders and start working on their own for one of the other factions right away if they wanted to put in the effort. Will the other plots eventually be getting 3x3? It depends. It's just like the 2x2 Marshal. I wanted to see if people actually engaged with it, if there were actually community members adding to it, and there does seem to be. And one of the mechanics we have coming, and actually after I finish answering these questions, I'm going to jump over to the list of future features, and we're going to talk more in depth about those. But I wanted to get all the, and I know I'm taking way longer than some of you probably expected to cover the features in this, but that's just what I do. I like to go in deep on talking about this stuff. So with the 3x3 plots, just like the 2x2 Marshal, if the community gets engaged with it, they're building a lot of stuff for it and they like it, we might expand it and offer it for other plots. One of the things I've always had a concern with these is that they're just too big, that it's hard to use them effectively. And so I don't know how useful they will be to people. So you guys got to give us feedback and let me know if they're a lot of fun. I know the builders are chomping at the bit to have these for other things. Many of the add-on pack authors have talked about how exciting it is to have that kind of space. So, I could see them wanting that space for other plot types. Do they still pay taxes, chops, etc.? So taxes are still paid at the vassal settlements. They are not paid at the outposts. And the outposts, this is one of the first things we'll talk about when we talk about future features. The outposts are going to be set up to incentivize you to make changes to the plots. So say, for example, you go take over a city. You're going to be incentivized to change those plots into stuff that would be more useful to a military. So more martial plots and certain types of industrial plots and things like that. So the stuff will all still work. They just won't pay taxes anymore, and a lot of the advantages are reduced. So there's way less of a benefit to having agricultural plots in your outposts than there is in your vassal settlements. And the gameplay mechanics are all going to encourage that. But you're always going to have the freedom to choose to ignore those mechanics, and you'll even have the option to turn them off. So all these mechanics that I'm discussing and these balancing things, I'm always talking about things from the default options of how I envision it being played and how it's balanced around. But all of it's toggleable. So, and if not now, it will be eventually, as soon as you guys pointed out to me that you want it toggleable. Let's see here. If one has Industrial Revolution installed, would the 3x3 agricultural plot get a level 4? Yes, it does. If you use Industrial Revolution and you get the good, I can't even remember the name of the building. Tool and Die Shop. The Tool and Die Shop, then yes, the 3x3s do have a level 4 as well. All right, so I think that's the end of the questions Rick's posted for me. So I am going to jump over to the future list, and we're going to talk about some more stuff. So I keep talking about this stuff already, so I'll skip things we've already gone over. So the first thing I have listed here is faction support through add-ons. So like I said, the underlying code is already kind of there for it. Somebody could start doing it, but my goal is to get it down to where anybody could design a faction. It won't be as in-depth as the Raiders, where we have this whole quest series and everything. But if you imagine the options that Jammer has, so he's got the recruitment thing and he's got the different raid attacks. If you imagine that came from something similar to like maybe a new object on the city planner's desk or something like that, where you would have you'd have new menus you could access. Effectively, it would be the same thing, and you could run it with different factions without somebody having to put in all the effort to do the quests and everything like that. So I believe I can get the faction support down to just designing like the totems, designing the soundscape, design by just choosing the sounds they want to play, picking out the attack units and the defense units, like just basically just making decisions inside the creation kit and filling out forms, and like then you would be able to design yourself the all of the elements that are needed to take this Raider gameplay loop and convert it over to another faction. So I envision it being very simple to do in the grand scheme of things, especially for add-on pack authors who are very familiar with my methods and how I like to set up quest objects and stuff like that, of like these little invisible miscellaneous objects that you just fill out script properties on. It'll be something very similar to that. So I imagine that faction support, once I finish the toolkit for it, will be very quick coming. And like I said, we will likely do just really rudimentary versions for all the core factions, so that once that patch comes out, then you guys will be able to start playing with it, and then we'll start to see the community develop. Hopefully, we'll see the community develop. I don't want to be presumptuous, but hopefully we'll see them develop things like the building skins and stuff, because I know a lot of you guys have been asking for a long time, actually since like year one of Sim Settlements, have been asking for access to things like Brotherhood of Steel focused buildings and whatnot, and so I'd love to see that stuff as well. And the building plan skins are a perfect way to do that, in that rather than having to do everything from scratch, you could just kind of take existing buildings and redecorate. And one of the reasons that I did the skin system the way I did was so that those of you who want to redecorate the building, say like this example for this boat shack, for example, that we had built over here, if you have an idea of how you could just add some decorations to convert it into something that was railroad themed or Minutemen themed, you could do just the bare minimum in the builder's toolkit. There's a tutorial about decorating. You could do just that and apply it to the skin, and instantly have access to a new thing you could release. And it's a fraction of the effort of doing a full building plan. And so I think seeing this will make it much more likely that we start seeing the faction themed add-on packs, because right now I believe there's one for Institute and there's a few Raider things, but other than that we don't really have anything to cover the factions, and I think the skins will hopefully change that. So that's to me is one of the things that gives you that feel of the faction. So all the faction control stuff and the Conquer stuff is fun, and it's cool to fight alongside them like that. But it really takes it over the top when you start seeing it visually inside of the settlements as they're kind of making their presence known. So I would love to see all that stuff taken on by community teams to do some of the add-on pack stuff. All right, let me bring up my questions again, make sure I didn't miss anything. Oh, are we going too dark again? Let me here, I'm gonna just set the time scale down so it just stays at this time. There we go. Okay, let's talk about the outpost mechanics, because that is something that I'm very excited about handling. So the way I'm approaching this outpost system is I want it to work in a couple of ways. One is when you conquer, so like we're doing with these raiders, where you run the attacks and then you take them over. But I also want you to be able to take your existing settlements and just convert them into an outpost. So I imagine late game, and I'm going to address a bug real quick here. So this little floating thing, and I'm going to back up from it, a mailbox appears here. That will be fixed soon. In fact, in the live version of the mod, those mailboxes aren't even in there. They were still in the mod when I built this save, and so they're showing up for me. But that I'm aware of that popping issue, and we'll get it fixed eventually. All right, back to the point. For the outposts, so we want you to be able to convert your existing over, and it turns it into kind of a new gameplay loop, and especially tied in with the control system, which I'll talk about next. But the mechanics of the outposts, the way I envision them, are going to be more about troop management. So you're going to be incentivized to convert over plot types. You're going to be managing your troops, so you're going to be, increasing your recruitment, making sure they've got enough beds, making sure their morale is up, giving them proper equipment and things like that, as opposed to, so it's kind of like after you've already built the settlement, you've got it up to level 3 if you did the city, you've already built out all your plots. Now it's just like, what do you do next? And that's kind of what I wanted to tackle with this, is a way you can keep playing. So if you're not the Conqueror type, you're not into this whole raider thing, or even the other factions, but you do want something to do with your factions really late game, that's another way I want to see you be able to play with the outpost. So there's going to get, so essentially converting to an outpost is going to, so if you imagine right now we have the HUD from HUD Framework on the left there, all those meters, imagine if those changed into something totally different. Like that's kind of what I'm envisioning. It's just going to be like the next level of gameplay after you've finished with leveling up a city. And it will be something that you can do to all your settlements, or you can do to just some of them, and it'll be up to you to explore and play with the gameplay how you want. So then the next system, and actually let me pause again to check for questions. Nope, we're good. And again, I'm relying on Rick to relay me all the questions. So if you guys are typing them in chat and I haven't answered yet, he will hopefully throw them over to me. Because as you guys can see, I get distracted enough by the game. I don't need to also add all of your chat into my distraction level. Okay, so let's talk the control system. So this is the thing I'm probably the most excited about after Outposts, because it's kind of my dream mod. And now it was one of those things where like I didn't think I would ever have the time to do, and I definitely didn't anticipate putting it into some settlements, but it just fits so well with this Conqueror thing, especially with the city plans being pre-started like that. Like I said, after we got playing with the city plans pre-starting, it just opened up all sorts of ideas of how you could approach this game. It really changed the way I look at Fallout 4 and settlements in general, and gave me a lot of new ideas for the ways we can do these things. So in the description of the mod, I described the control battle as an end game where the enemy factions can make attacks on some of your outposts and try and free up your settlements or your vassal settlements and take them from you. And so the idea behind that is going to be that as you start getting into the outpost gameplay, you're going to piss off the other factions. And so it will either be, the ones that you've made enemies with that you haven't destroyed yet in the main story, or if not those, or if you have taken them all out, then we'll make it things like rival gangs and the gunners, and we will invent, as many factions as we need in order to make the gameplay work. But essentially it will be, as you start to grow, somebody's going to check your power.
Understanding the operators ain't
and
hard.
I'm going to turn off
We know how to live.
voices
The
again.
other
Get away from me.
gangs, well, dying
See,
is
there's more of those
their
distractions
strong
for me. So anyway, so it will be people will try and take your settlements, and then the gameplay mechanics will be provided to you to strengthen your control of an area so that you can slowly reduce or eliminate those attacks, or give your outposts the tools they need to fight back. Well, I'm also envisioning things like if you want to play the good guy Conqueror, rather than having these things like where you're beating down people and pillaging. You're giving them protection, or you're giving them support and aid. So things like maybe you could role play the Brotherhood coming in and helping all the settlements and going that way, and then your control comes from the opposite, so from the good side as opposed from the evil side that we're doing at the start of Conqueror. So I really want to explore all of those different aspects and give you options to play it however you want. So you can RP your way through this, but also have gameplay mechanics, so it's a meaningful game of back and forth control. I'm almost going to be treating it. I'm going to be developing this from the perspective of like, what if Fallout 4 were an RTS, in the sense that you're slowly taking over the map, but people are trying to fight back. I would say it's probably something akin to what's the new game? Is it? I can't remember the name of it. They Are Billions. Where it's you versus the game world as opposed to you versus other players, or you versus a specific enemy faction, to where essentially we've got, you're fighting against the game world to establish control, and the mechanics will be there so that you can do that, and slowly over time. So yes, it would become very frustrating if in perpetuity you were being under attack. So there will be gameplay mechanics to where you can work your way through that. So that's something I'm really looking forward to, but I think it has to come in phases. So we need the outpost mechanics before we can really engage into the control mechanics, things like that. All right, let's see here. I got another question. Hey, did you ever discover the cause of the new happiness bug? Multiple people have reported that happiness isn't changing at all, up or down. I have not seen that or researched it yet, but the last few weeks I've been pretty much laser focused on Conqueror, so I've fallen quite behind on the bug reports. That was another thing I can use help with. To the person who asked what they could do to help, is I'm always looking for people to help keep me organized with forum stuff. So people who've got support experience where you've done troubleshooting for people and you can help identify bugs, because one of the things we get most commonly with some settlements is because the feature list is so deep and there's not a lot of in-game tutorials, that we get a lot of bug reports that are actually just people not understanding mechanics. And so it becomes overwhelming to try and keep up with all the bug report forums, because most of them aren't bug reports. And so with the amount of stuff I'm trying to do, with all the mods I'm trying to manage and everything, I have very little time for it. So having people to like funnel actual bugs to me, so actually, doing the legwork and confirming that it's a bug and then sending me like exact replication steps, that is invaluable, because I can fix bugs very quickly. In fact, we had a discussion about this on the testing team yesterday, about how 90% of the QA role is just trying to figure out how to allow kinggath to replicate the issue. Like, how do we get it so that he sees it? Because once I have it happening in my own game, it's very quick for me to backtrack, just because I'm so in tune with the way all this stuff works, that once I see something off, I can usually replicate it, and I know the right console commands to run to test everything, and it's just way quicker once I have a repeatable state that I can get the game into to fix those bugs. So if there's a happiness bug, I'm sure we'll get it fixed as soon as somebody can show me how to repeat it. Same with, somebody talked about a tax bug today that is in there. Whisper, I think, brought it up, and so like that, again, as soon as I'm able to replicate it, I'll knock it out real quick. All right, so control system is would be coming down the pipes sometime after the outpost mechanics. And then there's the next thing we're talking about, more raider mechanics. So as you play through the early parts of the raider quest line, you're going to start unlocking new perks, and they give you new options of way you can play, and they're all things that are to give you more of a raider feel, because there's not a lot of that in the base game. Even with Nuka World, you don't have a lot of truly like bad guy type of things you can do. But one of the things that they added into Nuka World, which does add to that, are there's some Radiant quests where you can kind of do some bad guy stuff. And while I'm not a huge fan of Radiant quests generally, there's definitely some room to explore with them where they can be fun. For example, technically the raiding mechanic is just a Radiant, in the sense that you're doing the same sequences over and over again. But so I think if they're done well, or if the mechanics on the other end are fun, and it doesn't matter. It's the Radiant quests that suck are like fetch quests. But so we're not going to get into that. Like generally our any type of repeatable quests that we add in, our goal is going to be to make them, like, the mechanics of the actual quest be actually interesting, and not just the just the repeated doing things at different points in the map that are like fetching or killing. So we want to give you more of a Raider experience. So we're going to be expanding on the depth. So right now it's our Raider quest is very linear. We're going to expand on that. We're also going to expand on the little story behind it, so that you'll find that the story is pretty rudimentary. Because again, it was primarily as a driver, because what we wanted to avoid having to do everything through menus and you having to watch videos. And I know obviously that's ironic considering you're sitting here watching a multi-hour live stream to me teaching you all of this. But I think any of you who, if you've already played it, you've seen that you can learn most of this stuff right from within the game. I think the advantage you're getting from talking to me is you're hearing about all the future plans and maybe some of the technical background stuff that you wouldn't know from in-game. But I think everything you need to know is built into that quest. And so it was pretty linear with that goal in mind. But now that we've got that established, so we've got kind of the point from A to Z, we want to get you some more side quests and more and alternate options of how to do things. And as we introduce some of those other things I've talked about, like the outpost overhaul and the control battles, we're going to have Jammer and his gang teach you. So I would imagine that if you don't like watching all these videos to learn all this stuff and you want to just learn it all within the game, but maybe you're not into the Raider gameplay, it will be worth probably having a Raider save that you can just load up after patches and go talk to Jammer and any other of the Raider characters we introduce, just to see if they have new stuff to teach you, because that's how we're going to introduce it all. So it's always going to be built from a code standpoint to be faction agnostic, so that way as we introduce support for other factions, it will automatically work with those new mechanics, but the teaching methods are always going to come in Conqueror from our Raider squad here. So we've got essentially a full-time writer. Well, he's not full-time. He's obviously got his own life to deal with, but we've got a dedicated writer who's working on designing little quests and making sure that the Conqueror stuff is well taught to you guys from within the game and is actually fun. We've had a lot of discussions about what stuff is fun and what's not, as far as Radiant and that type of thing, of repeatable quests. So I'm hoping we can deliver some stuff that's really entertaining for you guys. All right, back to my list. I think I had one more thing on there. Oh, and then the last thing on the list for the future is better Nuka World integration. So I started up a thread. If you're a big fan of the Nuka World gameplay, you might want to jump over to this. And if anybody knows what I'm talking about and can link it, we started a thread on the Sim Settlements boards about I can't remember the title, but it was I posted it and it has Nuka World in the title. But essentially I was asking for a list of things that are kind of wonky with Nuka World and Sim Settlements, where maybe they don't work good, or mechanics in Nuka World that you didn't particularly like that you'd like to see improved. I'm going to work on integrating those, and we're going to be working on making Nuka World flow better with it. So we're going to try and, wherever possible, have our Raider gangs acknowledge them. We're going to tap into their leveled lists so that you can bring in some of their gang members into your gang and bring in some of their weaponry and outfits and stuff. And so we're really going to try and tie into that, since there is a lot of great Raider content there that's we don't want to just ignore. And we also don't want to just copy it all. So, for example, we started out with just like, let's copy Shank, and then we realized, oh, we can go a lot deeper with this once we have control of the system. The same thing is going to happen when we start looking at some of the other Radiant quests in Nuka World, is that while we might want to pursue some of those same ideas, we're going to expand on them and try and offer more interesting options. But Nuka World is definitely on my radar of things to deal with. And I think some of the mechanics will automatically take place with Nuka World. For example, the supply line system is in Sim Settlements, or in Conqueror, is different than the supply line system in Nuka World. In Nuka World, all of the outposts get tied to Nuka World Red Rocket. And in the Sim Settlements version, they all get tied to each other, and they also get tied to the vassals, which is different than Nuka World as far as I can recall. So ours is a little different, but if you capture some settlements with Nuka World, and then later capture a settlement with Jammer's lineup or with the Sim Settlement Conquer code, once we have it more open, it will also tie in all of the Nuka World ones. And one of the things that we haven't discussed that will be possible, because I try and keep these systems open so you guys can play with them however you want, is once we have more factions involved, it will be completely possible for you to role play a double agent and have like half the map controlled by your Raiders gang and the other half controlled by like the Minutemen or the Brotherhood or something, or have a mix. And the code is all aware of that, and it will make them all work amongst each other. So it will be like All of the supply lines will from raider outposts will only connect to other raider outposts and things like that. And then you would be able to then run attacks of your own controlled factions against your other settlements that are controlled. So so you could actually set up your own little personal wars if you don't want to have the automated systems doing it. So if you like the idea of just, playing one character indefinitely, I know there are a few of you out there who just keep playing the same save over and over again. And that might be, you guys might be good candidates for doing something like that, to where once we have more faction support, you actually engage in all these gameplay systems and set up your own little wars going on. All right, so I think that is everything. That's all the stuff that I wanted to talk about. We talked about all the mechanics that are live. We talked about all the mechanics that we have coming down the pipes. So I guess, do we have any more questions? And I guess I can pop over to proper chat now and let Rick take a break on the relaying. Oh, my game tabbed out again, didn't it? No, there it goes. Yeah, you will be able, as Demanding said, you'll be able to watch this again from the beginning later. I will, I'll let it upload once it's finished, once we cut the stream. Is it possible to activate the Conqueror stuff on an old save? It should be. Oh yeah, is the giveaway still going on? Rick, how are we doing? Rick, can you, are you still there? Do we have any more codes to give away? Because we actually, we have 2 for PC as well, I believe. Is that correct, Rick? Do we still have 2 of those left? I think we have 2 more DLC packs for PC players. So if you are on PC and you want to join in on that that giveaway thing, then ask Rick will tell you how he's doing it. But or maybe he already gave them away. I haven't heard from him. I'm waiting for him. But so we've got 2 for Steam and 1 left for Xbox. So if you guys want to tweet at Sim Settlements, or post on Facebook or whatever. Rick, how are you doing it? Let them know. Rick will post in chat what you should do to get access to it, but maybe I'll have you tag if you want, if you're on Xbox. Okay, message us on Facebook. Let us know that you are interested in the codes for the DLC, and tell us whether you're on Xbox or PC. And when we're getting closer in a little bit, we'll pick some at random and hook you guys up, because we got 3 left. So mad props to Bethesda for hooking us up with those. That was really cool of them to give us a bunch of DLC packs for free to give out. It's awesome to see that they are excited for us to be producing content for their game, which I guess they should be. Like, I think that's pretty sweet to see a game company do as much as they do with modding. Like, I had this conversation on one of my podcasts recently about somebody asked me if I would be interested in modding other games, and it's like, well, there's not really any company that goes to the lengths that Bethesda does to encourage modding, because their whole game engine is like designed to be modded. But anyway, let's see here. Going back to the questions, I think I started to answer one and then got distracted there, so let me scroll back up. Let's see here. Yeah, activate the Conqueror stuff on an old save, someone asked. So you will be able to, for sure. Right now, it probably depends on how far ahead I thought. So if you look at, so I tried to think of scenarios that would prevent Jammer's quest from starting, and the testers said they found some methods to prevent him from starting up his quest. But I wasn't able to replicate them, and like I said, replication is how I fix things. So you just got to try it. Go to Concord and see if he's up there. And sometimes one of the ways that his quest will trigger differently is if you did the Minutemen stuff already before you reach him, he will just be hanging out behind that building. There's like a playground back there. And you can sometimes find Jammer hanging out back there instead of on the roof. And that's one of the alternate ways his quest can start. So as long as you can do part of his quest, you can get access to the Conqueror system. And then once we implement the support for more factions and more stuff like that, it might even come sooner than that. I might even add the means to trigger without Jammer sooner, because I think some of you guys are going to only want to play through the Jammer quest one time, and then you're not going to want to do it again because maybe you just hate the character or whatever, and you're not going to do it. So I want to give you guys access to play with the Conqueror stuff as soon as possible beyond that. But for now, your way to do it on an old save is just go try and do Jammer's quest. Let's see here. Let's try scrolling through. So one of the things I struggled with last time I did a live stream on here is the scrolling of the chat on YouTube. It's got the worst scroll bar ever. I wonder if I can make it bigger. I could definitely move it. Let's put it here. Let's try this. No, that didn't help. Come on, YouTube. Get with the program. Can you still use proficient provisioners for your slide line? I don't know what proficient provisioners is. I assume that that's a mod. But I tried to never do anything that will interfere with other people's mods. I try to script as much as possible so that it's compatible with all mods. Brendan, as far as what podcasts, I have my own podcast that I do every Sunday. And I talk to people who are into games. So it's people on the Sim Settlements team, people who are game developers. I talked to Gopher once, and just anybody who's in the nerdosphere. I'm happy to talk to. I've got a couple more mod authors I'll be talking to in the next couple of weeks. Oh, somebody wanted to know who won the city plan contest. That is a good point. Let me jump. I think I know. I'm pretty sure it's Genuine Entropy, but I'm gonna go confirm that before I. Let's see here. And we just started reorganizing our forums, and thank you GA Darker Side for doing that, because it's getting a lot nicer to look through these, because our forums can be pretty scary, because we have a lot of users. It's awesome to see the community around Sim Settlements. There are so many people popping up and joining us. Oh, and speaking of the city plan contest, while I look up this vote, if you are in the contest and you're working on one of the and you're building a raider theme settlement, yes, you can use the new raidery plots from Conqueror in your design. So you can use the agricultural 3x3. You can use the new building plans that are in there. There's, I believe we have two 2x2 Marshall, a new 1 or 2 recreational, and an industrial, I think, are the collection that we've added so far. Let's see here. Voting. Here it is. Yeah, Genuine Entropy took it. And if anybody could link the video to his tour, for anybody who cares, we will. We've got most of those city plans just about ready to go, but because of Conqueror taking up all my development time, I haven't had a chance to package them up for release, but hopefully I can do that next week. Workshop Framework is on Xbox. Yes. Let's see here. Oh, IJEX Logistics Station. Oh, I have no idea how that will work. That is a great question. Someone should let me know. If it's broken, IDEC is usually pretty active in our community, so I'm sure he'll contact me about getting everything working again. Oh man, Moderate Century, thanks. Hopefully I can continue to be for a while. We're on a mission to do. We're trying to do some crazy stuff this year. We've got a lot of Sim Settlement stuff planned. So like everything I just went over, all those future content, that's just like the tip of the iceberg of what we're working on. Because we have like we're kind of getting our groove now. Like the team is kind of tightened up, and people know what people are getting good at certain things, and it's getting pretty sweet. New fixed reload script. No, I had done a reload script at one point. If you're talking about reload as in for the, what do you call it? The rifle from Far Harbor. I did one of those and released it. I had given it to, God, I can't remember his name now. Some other mod author. I'd written it for him, and we had it kind of working, but it was a little wonky. Will raiders use regular plots or just raider plots? They will use any plots for now. So one of the things I talked about is we're going to do an overhaul of the outpost mechanics, and it might be that we introduce limitations. But if anytime I introduce a limitation like that, I'm going to also offer you a toggle to turn it off. So for example, right now the slaves can't work commercial or martial plots, and you can turn that off. Though, just a warning, if you assign them to a commercial plot, they have no dialogue, because I switched their dialogue to the like, please help me stuff from the captives so that it's immersive. Let's see. I remember from Fallout 76, a robot was a raider. Why not have a robot faction? Yeah, that's the other thing, is this system is not limited to the vanilla factions in any way. If somebody wanted to take the time and design a new faction with different characters, they absolutely could. Like, designing factions is actually really simple. It's generally a matter of, you give your faction a name, you make a bunch of NPCs, give them equipment, set up leveled lists, and you're done. Like, it's that easy. Like, a faction is just a thing in your head mostly. So one of the things I imagine somebody could do is bring in like the Enclave or factions from other games, or expand into the smaller factions. Like, I would love to see like the Children of Adam become a faction you could raid with or something. Like I said, we're going to focus on just doing like the big four as options by default, and then we'll let the community decide how to handle all the oddball factions and non-lore friendly ones. Could some settlements be started already on a new game? I don't know what you mean by that, but the feature to start up or to start up the cities in advance before you get out of the vault, that's new. That's something Conqueror does, and it's only possible with Conqueror. But yes, you could go start city plans right away now without having any leaders, because we added the leader feature to be optional. Oh, yeah, Super Mutant Faction. That could be awesome. Yeah, all of them. You could do all of them. Because that's the other thing is, even though they are, maybe the factions are hostile in the default game, Workshop Framework takes care of that automatically. So you essentially just have to set up your faction in a way, like, and that's something I'll do in the tutorials, but any custom faction, you essentially just have to set it up so that it's friendly to the player, and Workshop Framework will take care of all of the inter-NPC interactions, so you don't have to think about that. Oh, can Conqueror be replaced from Raider Overhaul? No, actually, I was going to mention Raider Overhaul. So Raider Overhaul has been in work in progress state for a long time. We tested a little bit of Raider Overhaul with it, and it interfaces nicely with Conqueror, and it will automatically, like, their leveled lists will affect your Raider recruits automatically, so they'll get all the new cool equipment. And if you guys haven't seen the stuff the Raider Overhaul team has been working on, it is insane. Like, it's pretty cool right now. Like, it adds a lot of named raiders and adds some new armor and stuff, but the depth that they've got for their next update is nutty. And I talked to Third Storm, and he's going to try and get an update out this weekend. Because I actually have been bugging him about it for a while since we've been working on Conqueror, to try and coordinate a launch just so you guys could go all Raider. Like, Uwit, did you release Blood Moon Raiders? Because if so, you should pimp that out right now and get some more people downloading. Because Uwit, the reason that we are all in on Raiders and not some other faction is because Uwit showed me what he was working on, and it just inspired the hell out of me. And now I mean, man, you've got to have like 40 or 50 plots now. You've had so much time to work on this. Like, just this massive amount of Raider plots that Uwit's going to be releasing. Is it possible to add NPCs into faction lists in-game? Like, could I make a standard automaton and then set it to randomly appear within my faction when it's built? Yes, you can do crazy amounts of stuff with leveled lists and injecting them on the fly. In fact, one of the cool ideas I have in my head, but I have no idea if or when I'm going to implement this, because I have too many ideas going already and too many mods I'm trying to keep afloat, is that theoretically you could make alliances in the middle of the game and then have them start showing up in your recruit list, and like that should be feasible. So like, imagine you're running the Raider gang and you make an alliance with the Gunners or something like that. That could be possible. Oh, hey, Gambit. Yeah, I hear Third Storm tells me that everybody in your guys' channel is addicted to 76. That's very unfortunate for you all. Fortunately for all of you guys who like some settlements, I have come to dislike 76, and that's why you haven't seen many videos of me playing it lately, because it's just the disconnects annoy the hell out of me, and I just I'm not enjoying the game enough to keep at it. But hopefully some of these changes they've talked about, because they announced a bunch of cool changes, so maybe it'll change my tune later. I am definitely going to keep popping back in, but right now I am just obsessed with making Fallout 4 my dream game, which involves city building turning into RTS gameplay with control and conquer elements. Book found, yeah, that's one of the core features of Conqueror is you can start up settlements already built. So when you first start a new game, you will be a few seconds after you finish your character creation, you will get a prompt that asks you if you want to convert some settlements into self-run cities, and then you'll get all these options and you can tweak it however you want. And then while you're doing the opening sequence, Conqueror in the background is pre-building all the settlements, populating them, and getting them ready for you to play the game. And it's got a lot of randomization features so that every time you play the game, it can give you a whole different experience. Jammer wanders off to Grey Garden. So this is something I've never been able to replicate, but 2 of my testers did. We're not sure why it is. I'm assuming it's a conflict. If you want to post on the forums that you had that happen and maybe post your load order, we can do some comparisons and try and figure it out. It's some sort of weird AI thing. But usually at least this is what happened to XV, is ultimately he ended up back in the correct settlement. He just made a detour to another settlement for some reason. I don't remember which one it was for him, but it wasn't, I don't know if it was, I think it was Egret instead of Grey Garden. But yeah, occasionally he will I think it's only the first time you capture a settlement, instead of going to it, he goes to some arbitrary other settlement first, and I haven't figured out why that is, but as soon as I figure it out, I'll fix it. But you can, at any time, you have a million different ways you can move Jammer around. So you can talk to him and say change base, and you can pick, and so this is another mechanic that I'm going to expand on. So right now, whatever base Jammer is at is considered the headquarters. It's your main base. And that's going to factor into gameplay more. So like there's going to be gameplay elements where you get where certain things are beneficial to be your main base, so that you'll have strategic reasons to choose different ones. Right now, so you can either talk to him and say change base, and then he'll move to that. You can use the workshop interface and just send him into another settlement. And you can also go to another outpost after you get past a certain point in the quest. I think it's after you learn or after you get to the point where you can choose any of the attack runs, like after you've conquered your first outpost and first vassal, he becomes a leader, and you can use the city manager's desk in an outpost to move him to a different settlement, and he'll become the leader of that. And he does have leader traits, which will show up in the interface. So, but he's a new leader type that can only lead outposts. Let's see. Other factions will be able to attack settlements and take over. So that's I haven't. Oh, did you just release it, Did you just release the mod right now? Blood Moon Raiders ready to go. Oh, nice. So yeah, Blood Moon Raiders. You guys should check that out. He is the depth and insanity of his Raider stuff is awesome. And it will go perfectly with Conqueror. Sorry, so I am Ellipsis. I think that's how you say that. Back to your question. So we haven't decided exactly which factions are going to attack. Right now, it's focusing on... I'm trying to integrate as much as possible with the main game story in a way that just feels like... ultimately, my goal, and this is one of the reasons I've never relented on the holotape being in the world. I know a lot of people are like, screw you, man, just put it in my inventory. And I never relent on that because I'm an immersion dickhead. Like I need my game to feel like everything belongs in it. So anything we do in that regard that's built into the core mod, so built into the experience, is going to have to feel like it could belong in the game world. And so if we find a way to do that with some weird factions, we'll do it. If not, we won't. But I could definitely see super mutants doing it. In fact, there's a couple of points in the game where it looks like that's what happened, where it looks like there were settlers living there and the super mutants just killed everyone and moved in. So that could actually be a really awesome mechanic, is to have super mutants attack and then take over. So yeah, I can see that being a thing that happens. All right, guys. Looks like we're winding down on questions. If you guys got any more for me, I really need to crash a little earlier than last time I streamed, so I got about 20 minutes left in me. If you guys got any more questions. But if any of you who aren't on the Sim Settlements forums yet, I highly recommend you guys join us there. It is one of the more active forums, and we've kept it very friendly. A lot of people there are really knowledgeable about sim settlement. So if you get stuck in the game in anything, or you think you've got a bug or whatever, there's usually people there who can help you pretty quickly. Oh, Captain Coots wants to see the Raider desk. Yeah, I can build that in a second. Where is Jammer expected to be in Concord? If it's an existing save, he should be behind that. There's like a playground area. So there's that fork in the road just past Red Rocket, and he should be, if you walk in between those roads, like right down the middle instead of choosing one of the forks, there's like a playground back there, and he's usually hanging out back there. What would justify 3x3 of the other types? I just need feedback from the community. Like, are they fun to play with? Are they obnoxious? And then I have to think about how do we balance them, because that's an issue of like making sure that not only does the space justified with the benefits, but also then that the dynamic needs match up. Because it's all, one of the things, the problem with bigger plots is you still can only have one person assigned to them, just because there's a core part of the Fallout 4 engine where one reference can't have multiple owners. And so the way to bypass that is going to require a pretty big code overhaul. And so just right now, just thinking about it from a mechanics and just like usability standpoint, there's a lot of issues there. So the 3x3s they're just kind of out there for testing. I'm trying to get feedback. So if everybody who likes them and wants to see more of them just needs to tell me as much on the forums. How do I volunteer if I want to get on making mods and all? Are there still spots to join up? It depends on what you mean. So if you want to get in on making add-on packs and stuff, that is ready to go right now. There's the Builder's Toolkit. If somebody wouldn't mind linking that for Nicolo, the Builder's Toolkit is really easy to follow, and in it you will find a method for getting access to our development Discord server so that we can help you through it. So anyone who's working on add-on packs is welcome on our dev server to ask questions. Let's see. And don't everybody rush to get access to it just to try and eavesdrop, because all of the stuff that we're developing is in private channels. The people who are working on add-ons don't have access to those channels. Let's see here. Yeah, by default, Steam. Yeah, by default he's sitting on the roof, but depending on what you've done in the quests, he might be standing on the ground. Yes, the Jason Satterfield, yes, the mod is available on Bethesda.net and Nexus. Though one thing to note is that there are now so many Sim Settlements add-on packs that it's almost impossible to find Sim Settlements through the game, through Xbox or Bethesda.net in the game, because it has a limited search capacity. It can only return 100 results for a search term, and so sometimes the base mod doesn't come back. But if you go to simsettlements.com, we have a link directly to it so that you can favorite it, because if you favorite something on Bethesda.net, it will show up in your in-game interface, like as a separate section, so you don't have to search for it. Any word or knowledge on support for this mod with Horizon? Kevin Harrison. So there is somebody that works a lot with the Horizon team, and he is constantly asking me for help with integrating better with Sim Settlements, and I have been terrible about getting back to him, and I will make the time to do it. I don't mean to ignore him. It's just a matter of like my schedule is so damn overpacked right now because I'm trying to do a ton of things. I'm basically, for those of you who don't follow me that much, you might not know that I had my first child last year. No, it's been over. Oh my God, it's been like 18 months now. So anyway, I'm a recent dad, and I'm about to be double dad. And I think as soon as that happens, my modding time is going to get cut down. So I've been like on a mission to get all of my favorite mod ideas like into the world. So that way, if I have to cut my time down, at least the mods exist, and then it's just supporting them, which takes a lot less time than developing new stuff. So so things like support for other mods, that's the type of thing I will have more time for when I'm not actively developing these gigantic mods. So right now I've got Conqueror that we have a lot more to do for, and then we have another ginormous mod that we're actively developing. So so yeah, so my time is pretty heavily filled right now, but yeah, as far as Horizon support, it's been something a lot of people have asked for, and there's somebody working on it, but I don't know how much support they still need. Let's see here. Can we enslave the settlers that are with Preston? Probably. I haven't tried it yet. Can you kill both Jammer and Preston? Yes. If you at the beginning of after you get Jammer's quest, if you go beat down one of Preston's gang and put them into the subdued state where they're like laying on the ground about to die, you will earn a perk called Executioner, and that lets you literally kill any NPC in the game. Literally anyone. You could walk up to Father, beat him down, and then break his neck. Like, you can just kill whoever you want in the game, with the knowledge that you will break quests, and that's your choice to make. So, like, that's one of the things that used to be in all Bethesda games, and they've started taking it away. You used to be able to break your saves, and I always thought that was awesome. And they took that away. And if you don't like that, if you're scared of the Executioner perk, there's an option in the holotape to turn it to protect Essentials from you accidentally killing them. Let's see. I know some actions associated with conquering, like killing innocent people, will make companions angry or happy, but what about the possibilities of deeper interfacing with the companion system? We definitely want to do more with the companions. So I really want to see, here's a couple of things I have in mind for the future that I didn't talk about earlier. One of the things 100% is going to happen is we're going to have secondary leader cards that are going to be like military leader cards that are going to be like, if a guy isn't, so say you put Preston in charge of a city, he will have one set of leader traits, but if you put him in charge of an outpost, he'll have a different set of traits. That's something that's going to come down the pipe, and it'll be after I develop all of the control and outpost mechanics, because once we have those mechanics developed, that opens up a floodgate of new possibilities for different leader traits of how they could offer alternatives. So, for example, one of the mechanics that's in right now is you can recruit up to 5 new recruits a day. Well, an awesome new leader trait would be they can recruit an extra 2 recruits a day or something like that. Like things like that where we open up tons of new potential mechanics to add on to. Let's see here. And then other than that, deeper interfacing with the companion system. I'm not sure. Oh, something else that we didn't talk about yet is and this will probably come fairly quickly, is one of the things we've been discussing is how to make those raiders, how to make it so that you can keep those raiders with you longer instead of having them just be like cannon fodder. We are going to introduce a system where survivors start getting stronger, so they kind of will get like veteran status, and that you can look forward to, where your guys will almost level up if you're good at managing them. And we got a system like that in the works. And so it might be that the companions can take advantage of that too. Well, I don't know. The companions are definitely on our radar. They're harder to work with though, because there's so many of them. So for example, like we did this character Jammer to be your interface, and it took, hundreds of lines of dialogue and tons of hours to set up. And if we want to interact with and we had to do all the dialogue for the player, if we decide we want to do something with the companions, we have to do it for all of them. So there's like, like a dozen or 12 or 13 companions if you count the DLC ones. Like, it would just, the amount of work that goes into it is pretty ridiculous. And to get, and it's definitely worth it, I think. But as far as, what I try and do is maximize our effectiveness. Is like, what can we get the most out of, and like that to me that's kind of nuanced stuff. So that's the stuff where I would prefer to see people who are better at the small focus, and and while we focus on kind of the bigger picture things and build more systems, is kind of what I've focused our team on. And obviously the Jammer quest is kind of pushing us toward the smaller scale direction. And it's been very interesting for me. I don't know how far we're going to take it. We're going to try and push it until it becomes a problem, I think. But yeah, as soon as you get into interfacing with things like companions, it just becomes so small scale with so many moving parts that it can kind of drag you down in development time. So since this is all volunteer work and it's people working, doing this stuff after work, doing things of that nature can tend to make it so we can't deliver much content, even though it might be deep content. We can't do a bunch. And I apologize if I've been skipping some things. Like, I think I just backed up by accident and saw a different one. Are you planning salvage beacons for sim settlements? Yes, that's I think that's the last thing. So on the initial Sim Settlements page, there was a future section. And I think the only thing that's still on that list that isn't in the mod now is Salvage Beacon implementation, and it's still coming. It's going to be one of the things that shows up in the next big project after Conqueror. Do you foresee being able to name your raider group? So you already can. So at some point, as you're going through the quest, you get an option to name it. You don't get to name it completely custom. You get to choose between a handful of names, though. And then, like, Jammer actually, speaks the name of the gang and whatnot. Currently, yes, 3x3 is only for farms, though we might expand it beyond that in the future. Carnex, yes, you could turn every single settlement into an outpost with no vassals. Absolutely. Now, in the long term, I would say that once we have all the gameplay mechanics in place for outposts, that probably won't be like a feasible option unless you turn those off. Kind of like how there's dynamic needs in Sim Settlements by default. If you were to not build any farms, you would lose control of all of them. There will be some similar but different way to lose control of outposts. Like, likely it would be tied into morale and into other enemy factions taking them over. So, could veteran raiders get names? Maybe. That was something that our writer suggested, is the idea that once they get to a certain level, that you reveal their names. Like, that might be a thing, but we haven't committed to it yet. Did you find a solution to the script weight limit? No. So the script limit. So this is one of those things where it's going to likely become a problem again at some point. We're gonna have to deal with. I don't think we'll ever have to deal with it again within Sim Settlements and its core stuff, but within the community at large, we're gonna have to deal with. And I think all we can do is just keep pushing and keep making more and more stuff, and eventually somebody in the community who's good at reverse engineering software will fix the problem. I unfortunately don't have that skill. It's never something I've spent the time to learn how to do, and I took a crack at it briefly, like just for the sake of trying to fix the script limit, and I just can't do it. Like, it's so far beyond me that it's one of those skills where I think it would take 100 hours to get decent at, and then you still might not be able to solve it. But there's a bunch of people, like everybody who does F4SE, they have the skill set required to solve that problem. They just, we just have to give them the incentive to do it. So it's just enough people asking about it, or somebody with more pull than me who's friends with them to convince them to do it. But I've brought it up to their team, but I haven't seen any traction on it. I don't think that they think it's a problem, because I am... like, Sim Settlements is one of the only mods that's really pushing the script data usage to an extreme. Are you still planning those nukes? Yes, definitely. I definitely am going to do 76 style nukes in Sim Settlements at some point. I want something equivalent to how, like, where you've got to go through like the tech tree in Industrial Revolution, where you have to go through all those steps to unlock the Helios one. I would love something similar like that to unlaunching nukes, and it would be especially useful. Can you imagine starting off your raid with dropping a nuke on the settlement you're going to attack? Like, that would be amazing. ESL version, never. Not a chance in hell. There will never, ever be an ESL. Because the problem with maybe you're asking somebody else, but the problem with ESLs is they essentially make it so it's really hard to edit, because you not only limit your number of forms, which we are probably already past on most of the mods that I've built, maybe not Workshop Plus or Framework, but they also make it so that it's very hard to edit your mod, because if you change the form ID, you break all saves that were using your form. So then you have to go through and carefully tweak your form IDs, and it's just a big hassle, and I just don't want to deal with it, because I would prefer to just be able to constantly update mods. So the ESL just puts more work on me, and it would slow down the amount of stuff I can deliver to you. So it's kind of like, would you rather have that extra mod slot, or would you rather have a mod author who is happy to continuously develop new content? It's kind of the choice you have to make. Well, you don't get to make it. I have to make it. Weird question. How would you characterize the script limit issue? Is it an interesting challenge or just plain frustrating? It involves essentially hacking. You have to, like, monitor, you have to use like debugging tools and monitor the exe in real time and figure out what exactly is where exactly that memory caching is happening, or the memory allocation is happening, and expand it. And I don't know where it is. I don't know how it works. I've identified the problem, so I've told people that know how to fix it where to look, Again, we just have to give them the incentive to do so. And I think one of the incentives will just be lots more content coming out that pushes the envelope to where if more big mods are hitting that script limit bug, then they'll start putting pressure on the people who know how to do it to fix it. I think that's the way every problem in the world gets fixed, right? Is you annoy the person who knows how to fix it enough. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. Let's see. Yeah, if I get nukes added into some settlements, you will be able to nuke whoever the hell you please. You can nuke your own people, you can nuke the institute, you can nuke whatever. I'll just let them fly. Let's see. Jupiter, unfortunately, I am not. You're talking about Tessa Cuddy. You're talking about in the base game. So there is a feature that got cut before release because I was having trouble. So overall, there's an issue with Fallout 4 that I can tackle now thanks to Workshop Framework, and I just have never taken the time to do it. It's on my list, but it's like I have so many things going on. I don't know when it will happen. This might be something like a year from now, but I'll explain it anyway, just for you guys to understand. So the Workshop scripts right now use a script on settlers called the Workshop NPC script. And any NPC that has that script can easily be made into a settler. So with custom NPCs, it's real easy to do. With NPCs that are already part of the base game, we could make them that, but then we do a dirty edit, and I hate dirty edit. So dirty edit is you essentially mark a form so that no other mod can mess with it. And I generally just on principle never do that because I then then all these other mods have to patch around it and everything. So what would be required for that is that Tessa and Cuddy would need to have the Workshop NPC script applied. But here's where the Workshop Framework comes in. That's not natively required. It's just the way Bethesda did it. So since now I've gotten into the business of rewriting the Workshop scripts, technically I could rewrite them so that any NPC could become a settler. And that's something I would like to do long term. Because that just opens up so many possibilities. If any NPC can become a settler, then all of a sudden somebody could put out a mod that's like recruit anyone, and then you could just go around the game world and recruit an army out of whoever you like, and like that really appeals to me. S10 right now, no, you can't subdue any of them or convert them to your side, but it is something I would like to see. But that NPC script problem I just talked about, that's the reason that we don't have that yet. But ultimately, I do see a feature where as you build up your notoriety as a raider, then you start being able to just recruit random other raiders in the game world into your army. That's definitely something I would like to see if I can solve the Workshop NPC problem. More physical rewards, possibly. So the problem with physical rewards is the people that do them tend to not like to work on teams, is what I've found. So we were fortunate enough to have a weapon modeler design the weapon for Industrial Revolution, but so far the people that really understand those systems and do a lot of it, we don't have them on our team. But maybe when we finish some of the stuff we're working on, maybe some of the people who have been on the team working on other stuff, maybe that's something they would be interested in pursuing. I don't know, because we've definitely discussed weapon and armor rewards and things like that. It's just, in general, I've said no, because we don't want to do a half-assed job. Like, we don't want to see, those weapons that have like no mods and everything, but also just the amount of work that goes into a good weapon mod is very, very high. It's a lot of hours. Like, I'm sure like Nero and stuff, those guys put in just like 100 hours per weapon, if not more. And like, we just don't have that kind of resources for that. We don't have enough people with that kind of time to do it. Let's see here. Yeah, DC basically Jammer is new Preston, in the sense that he's telling you to conquer places instead of helping them. He's kind of bad guy Preston in that way. It's kind of like what Shank was. But we're looking to expand and make him more interesting. And that's kind of, like I said, the quest that's in the mod and Jammer stuff is kind of chapter 1. And we have a writer, Mr. Super Weevil, who is working on expanding what you can do with him and making him more interesting. And unlike Preston, Jammer doesn't tell you to do things. He's just kind of the driver. So he's a teacher. He will allow you, like, you go to him instead of the other way around. So he never, He rarely, I shouldn't say never, he rarely forces quests on you, unlike Preston, who's always jamming them down your throat. Do you have to play a Raider Warlord, or are there other varieties? Vencers, so maybe somebody else has already answered this and I haven't scrolled down far enough. Right now, if you want to use the Conquer mechanics, it's only available through our Raider quest, but in the future it will be exposed to play as any faction you like. Yeah, so Gambit, the leveled list injector is something I'm going to be doing. Probably putting it in Workshop Framework. Like, I'm starting to look at Workshop Framework as more of a catch-all, to where anytime I design a new gameplay mechanic, it makes more sense for me to put it in a like agnostic framework mod, so then other people can use them without having to put a big, like, kind of how you guys have AWKCR is like a lot of weapon mods use it because it's just like a nice centralized place where we're not you know, where you can just expect every player has it. And that's kind of how I'm treating Workshop Framework, is I want to get it to a point where we can just expect that everybody's using it, and then all the features I put in there, all sorts of mod authors can make use of. So like I said, that assault code and the control code, it's in Workshop Framework. Anybody could use it right now. So anybody with, you know, a little bit of coding chops could take the Workshop Framework code and build their own version of Jammer with any faction right now. It's ready to go. It's live. How many new NPCs will there be besides the useful Preston? You'll have, sorry, Captain. The chat, the way the chat works in YouTube is terrible. Like, the scrolling is the worst. So if you could just PM it to me, I'll grab it on Discord. Unless you're talking about the Raider desk, that's still on my mind. I'll get that. Let's see. How many new NPCs? We're not sure yet. Physical embodiment of chaos. We are. We've got at least 3 planned, but 3 more planned, and then we've got a handful of, like, I'd call them like underbosses. They're just going to be like simpler NPCs that are named, have voices, and are used for specific things like leaders and stuff, but we don't know how many we'll end up with. It's however many we need. So as we come up with mechanics and we don't think that they fit within an existing character, then we'll make our own character. Is We Are the Minutemen compatible? I assume so. I don't know. As long as they aren't breaking anything we're working with, it should be fine. No, so the leveled list thing I'm talking about is I will be adding a leveled list injector, which is a tool for mod authors to use so one of the problems with leveled lists right now is generally people tend to edit them manually, and then you end up having to create patches. That's why there are so many patches out there for weapon mods. So theoretically, someone could write a script that allows all those mods to run another script to handle the injection, and then they would all just talk to that intermediary mod rather than all having to touch the list directly. And it's something that I've already done for Workshop Framework in order to handle like the settlers and the production, and I could expand that to handle like weapon lists and NPC lists too, and then it would just be a useful resource for mod authors. Let's see here. Okay, Captain Coots asks, is there a place we can ask for new workshop functions like get workshops with a keyword? Sort of. So like there are limitations to what I can do there. Like I can definitely add new global functions. If you want to request those, just go to the Workshop Framework GitHub page. You can post. You should be able to post there. Because that is one thing I've been trying to, whenever I come up with a new useful function, I've been trying to stick it in Workshop Framework for other people to make use of too. If you guys, any of you who likes to script, you should definitely look at the source for Workshop Framework. There's a lot of cool stuff in there you can tap into. Because I've often put stuff in there I'm not even going to use yet. I just like, this would be useful, and I just happen to have it in my head, so I throw it in there. Preferred music mod for FO4. I haven't used one. Okay, so I actually am going to be starting my first Fall of War playthrough in quite a while, and I'll be doing snips of it on my YouTube channel, so you guys will learn some of the mods I like. So I'm going to be doing it for a couple of reasons. One is, if I don't check in and play the game periodically, I'm gonna start developing features that no one wants or that don't work with the game. And so given that we're about to kind of go off the deep end on this attack system and stuff. I just need to get myself back in the game and play it. So I'm gonna be starting a new playthrough. I'm gonna be like constantly modding it. So I'm not gonna just have a mod list up front. I'm gonna just risk breaking my game and just keep adding mods as I find them. And any of them that I like, I'll probably put out recommendations for, like after I've tested them thoroughly. And so like you guys will find out what music mod I like if I play any. The problem is that because I'll be streaming, I probably won't have it turned on. Or I'm not streaming, posting videos. I'm probably not going to have radio mod going, but I used to use Old World Radio Boston, but it's been a long time. So I don't even know how many there are now. Were the player characters that were requested related to Conqueror as an unrevealed project? No, so I'm not sure what you're talking about player characters. So other characters related to Conqueror, we're talking about there will be other NPCs besides Jammer that you can interact with and get missions from and stuff. Do you ever do city plan contests with the smaller DLC workshops at some point? I don't know. What do you mean smaller? Oh, you mean like the Creation Club stuff? Maybe. I don't know. The problem is I don't want to ask people to have to buy stuff to participate. I think the major DLC is pretty well out there. Like, you know, the number of people with Far Harbor is high enough where I think we'll eventually do there. But I've been trying to keep it at least one of the options always vanilla, and that's probably how I'll continue to go, is just to make sure that anybody who owns Fallout 4 can participate. Gambit, when the civilians do still have names, like all of their base forms are still named, and a lot of them are named after either the player or the player or the character who turned in the face. So most of the faces on the civilians came from SimSettlement players or developers, and then we tried to name them after their character or the developer. So yes, there are Easter eggs all over like that. Kinky fella, yeah, we always can use concept art because we have a lot of stuff going on, and like sometimes we'll just be trying to flesh out an idea and we need somebody to make it reality. So yeah, we can definitely use concept art. We have a lot of people who do concept art on the team, so you will have some friends to talk to too. But if you want to apply to that, just head to the simsettlements.com forums and send me a private message with your portfolio, and I will let you know if we got anything for you. Physical embodiment, you can do that right now. So you can already order raiders to attack other settlements. So if you go to Concord, and you'll find a raider sitting on the roof, and he will give you a quest. And if you follow his quest, you get to build yourself a raider gang and build it up and attack other settlements. That is what you get to do right now. That's one of the cruxes of Conqueror is. Choo Choo, did you tag me because I missed another one of your questions? What are my system specs? Good question. I never pay attention to that stuff anymore. I used to, and now it just became white noise. I can tell you, I have on one of my, I got a 970 GTX on one machine and a 1070 on the other. Because I use one machine for live development for like the patches, and then one for the stuff that's not released yet. That way I don't accidentally release something I shouldn't, because it's a big challenge to keep track of everything. Oh, thank you for the donation. Thank you, Mr. Bernie. I really appreciate that. Let's see here. So as far as that's all I can think of all of my specs. I probably have 16 gigs of RAM in both of them. I don't keep track of the processors anymore. If you really want to know, I'm sure you guys can tell me a command I can run to look it up. But basically I bought like high-end gaming machines at the time, but they're both a little older. So neither of them, I don't have anything state of the art. Oh, contraptions and wasteland stuff. Yeah, so it's been asked. Yag has been asking about introducing certain smaller things into some of them. I'm just nervous about doing that just because I don't want to. I would like everybody to be able to use these city plans. Like there are a lot of people out there who can't afford or don't want to purchase the DLC for whatever reason, and I don't want to force them to use this stuff. And I think as soon as we open up the door and we say something like, okay, you can go ahead and use Contraptions DLC, I mean, everyone's going to want to use it. Like, that's in the contest. And then all of a sudden, every one of those settlements can't be used by those players. And that would really suck, especially because we're trying to, at least for this first round, where the goal is to try and get a big base of settlements for all of the settlements so that you guys have options and you can really enjoy that optional, or you can enjoy that randomization thing. So I really want to at least get through a full round of all the settlements in the contest without any requirements, and then we'll kind of expand from there. Nuka-Cola, do you have contact with someone from Bethesda team? Yeah, I've had a few people from their team have reached out to me, and that's how I was able to get those all those DLC keys that we gave away. Venser, let's see. Oh, Fortress Monastery, for example. So the thing with settlement subtypes is we don't have we probably do have a way, and this is one of those things where if we had somebody with a certain skill set, we could do more. We don't, and it's a rare skill set, which is hacking into flash files and editing them on the fly. Like, there's not a lot of people with that skill set. There's just a couple of people who do it. Like, if you look at all of the major UI altering mods, they're all done by Nyanka and Reg2K, because those are like two of the only guys in the community who know how to do that stuff. So like having that, like being able to do stuff like that, the problem we would run into is a lack of UI, so you wouldn't know what type of settlement you were in. So that's one thing. Like, one of the reasons that I chose Outpost and Vassal in my naming was just because it matched up perfectly with the Nuka World icons that are already built into the base game, so it was just easy to tap into that. But, you know, I mean, anything's possible, but we have so much planned out, and something like that is not on the roadmap yet. So, but who knows? I mean, like, as long as we've got as many of you guys playing as who are playing, like, as long as we keep getting, you know, like hundreds of thousands of people playing the mods we're developing, I think we'll keep developing them because it's fun. It's fun to see this many people, you know, playing with our stuff. All right, guys. Looks like the questions are drying up. So thank you once again to all of you for tuning in. I hope you are enjoying Conqueror. Oh, hold on. I promised Captain Coot something. I almost didn't do it. I want to show his desk off. And hopefully I can do it without having to change computers here. Oh, my stream is all frozen up. I definitely got to switch computers here. All right, here we go. There we go, workshop mode. So one of the things that's added with Conqueror is there's a new city planner's desk that Captain Coot's designed that's pretty cool. It's got a lot of scrappiness to it, especially this terminal he designed. And just like the regular city planner's desk, it spawns a bunch of stuff on it. And it's got all the normal tools. So you've got building plans going in the chem box. You've got this bustin'-ass terminal. Still got the flag for setting your flag. Your city plan is this, it's got a knife through it, and then you got your safe with a crowbar in it down here. And then if we add any new features to City Planner's Desk, we'll add them to this one as well. I assume it has a pack-up method too, right, Coots? Oh yeah, I built it right over top of a corpse. One of the little small features that's coming in one of these patches is I'm gonna have the raiders clean up the bodies for you because they are building all these totems out of them. So
We'd all considered putting a bullet in Coulter's back at some point. Suppose you just beat us to it.
Yeah, Daniel. Actually, I'm responsible indirectly for the Faster Workshop mod. So I was talking to Reg2K about Workshop Plus because he gave me a bunch of cool stuff I didn't know about Fallout 4, and I mentioned the fact that it's a shame how slow workshops are. And then like 10 minutes later, he sent me a version of Faster Workshop. He's like, "Here, I fixed it." I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And then once he understood how important that was to everybody, he released it, and now we all have that benefit. So that was pretty funny. I was witness to the creation of Faster Workshop. XBlue, no. Sim Settlements Lite is being discontinued. It wasn't updated to 4.0, but on the positive side of that is I am going to be able to reduce the size of the original Sim Settlements and the 3-in-1 so that you won't need Lite anymore. So like I can reduce the original Sim Settlements with all its features to be right around the same size as what Lite was. So Lite is just being discontinued. I will so probably next patch the updates to the size will be in there, because I know right now playing Sim Settlements on Xbox requires pretty heavy commitment, so we're gonna get that size reduction done ASAP. All right, all. I think I'm gonna go hit the hay now. I have not slept much in the last few days while we got ready for this launch. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Thank you to those of you who super chatted me. I think I caught Mr. Bernie. I don't know if anybody else did while I was deep in the zone there explaining all this stuff. Yeah, guys, keep an eye out for lots more updates. We got tons planned. Lots more Conqueror updates, as you heard my kind of plan. I don't really have a timeline for it all. It's because the goal is to, like I said, fix each of these features before we get to the next big one. So I cannot recommend enough for you guys to join the Sim Settlements forums and report bugs as you find them. Because the more reports we have and the more people we have scouting out the issues, the quicker we can get those resolved and move on to the next big feature. All right, guys, so take care, and I will see you all later. And stay tuned for plenty more YouTube content. I definitely want to get my playthrough up so you guys can see me struggle through Conqueror on this playthrough, and hopefully I'll learn how to improve it too and make some settlements better in the process. All right, take care, guys.